Did you know that there's a part of the US that experiences nighttime for months? How about the fact that Kentucky sits on a sea? Or that there's a landmass in the US that's actually expanding? US geography is full of bizarre facts and surprises you would never imagine. So get ready. We're about to explore 50 more insane facts about US geography. Kicking us off with number 50. Florida is home to thousands of sinkholes. The Sunshine State offers so much: golden beaches, diverse wildlife, retirement homes, and of course, Florida Man. But it's also apparently a great place to fall through the surface of the earth. A substantial part of Florida sits on top of limestone, which is easily dissolved by water. And because of this, several sinkholes have opened up under the surface. These include sinkholes off the coast, like the giant sinkhole 50 miles southwest of Sarasota called the Green Banana. This monster lies around 155 feet under the Gulf of Mexico's surface. Despite the prevalence of sinkholes, Floridians seem to take it in stride, nicknaming Central Florida Sinkhole Valley. Fact 49. You can stand in 4 states at once. At the appropriately named Four Corners Monument, you can do something pretty surreal: stand in 4 states at the same time. This is the only spot in the US where 4 state borders meet: Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah, all thanks to their largely square shapes. Fact number 48. The Rocky Mountains are still growing. The Appalachian Mountains stopped growing around 220 million years ago, but the Rocky Mountains are, geologically speaking, youngsters, only 65 to 35 million years old, and they continue to grow even today. That's why the main mountain range of the US West Coast is much taller than the Appalachian Mountains, with the tallest mountain reaching up to 14,440 feet, while the tallest mountain in Appalachia only reaches up to 6,684 feet. Fact 47. Kentucky is almost evenly split between 2 time zones. Many large states are split into different time zones, but Kentucky is unique because it is practically split down the middle. The western part of the state, including important cities like Bowling Green, sits in the central time zone, while the eastern part of the state sits in Eastern Time, or EST. Next up, fact 46. The US has the largest island in the largest lake in the largest island in the largest lake in the world. The U.S. side of Lake Superior, the largest of the Great Lakes, includes the Apostle Islands, a group of 22 islands known for kayaking, hiking, and other outdoor adventures in the area, and Isle Royale, the largest island in the lake by far. Isle Royale has several lakes on it, the largest of which is Lake Siskiwit, and that lake has a few tiny islands, the largest of which is Ryan Island. All this is a result of the glacial activity that originally formed the Great Lakes, leaving plenty of bodies of water and islets scattered behind. Fact 45. Nevada has over 600 ghost towns. Nevada has over 600 abandoned towns, many of them boom and bust towns left over from the gold rush and railroad construction heyday of the state. The most famous ghost town by far is Rhyolite, which was founded in 1905 and sits on the eastern border of Death Valley National Park. Fact 44. Minnesota does not have 10,000 lakes. Minnesota is known as the land of 10,000 lakes, but that nickname isn't actually true. In fact, Minnesota has around 11,800 lakes, with some sources claiming over 14,000 throughout the state. That leads us into our next fact, number 43. Minnesota doesn't have the most lakes of any state. Despite its reputation, Minnesota is not the most lake-covered state in the country. That honor goes to Alaska, with a whopping 3.2 million lakes throughout its territory, although only around 3,200 of them have been named. The sheer number of lakes is mostly due to past glacial activity, rainfall, and the current Arctic climate, which causes glaciers and permafrost to melt, creating millions upon millions of lakes. Fact number 42. The US has the only territory in the UTC-12 time zone. In addition to the 50 main states, the US has many territories abroad, mostly in the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean. Most of its territories in the Pacific, with the exception of Guam, fall under the US minor outlying islands. These include Howland and Baker Islands, which have the distinction of being the only landmasses in the world that fall within the rarest time zone on Earth, UTC minus 12. Though other countries and islands in the area, like Tonga, Fiji, and Samoa, fall within similar longitudes, they've decided to stick with neighboring time zones instead, to facilitate easier communication and working relationships with their neighbors. However, Howland and Baker Islands are uninhabited, functioning mostly as wildlife refuges and nature preserves today. Keeping with the theme of separation, fact number 41. One state capital can't be accessed by road. Juneau, Alaska is surrounded by mountains and glaciers, making driving into it almost impossible. For that reason, people have to get to Juneau by sea or air, making it the only state capital that can't be accessed by road. Okay, technically, Honolulu can't be accessed by road from the rest of the mainland US either, but it does have roads leading to it from the rest of the island, so we won't count it here. Fact number 40. The US-Canada border is the longest undefended border in the world. Maybe it's because of the friendly relations between the two nations, or maybe it's the miles of snow-covered forests and ice-cold lakes acting as a natural barrier. Either way, neither country has felt the need to build much in the way of border defenses. That makes the US-Canada border, which adds up to almost 5,525 miles, the longest undefended border in the world. Fact 39. 10% of the world's freshwater is in Lake Superior. Everyone knows that the Great Lakes are huge, but did you know that Lake Superior, the largest of them all, is so large that 10% of the entire world's freshwater supply is held within it? It's the largest freshwater lake by surface area in the world. It covers 31,700 square miles with an average depth of 483 feet. Fact number 38. The Florida Keys are partly made of coral. The Florida Keys, made up of over 1,700 named islands and many extra minor ones, expand off the southern tip of Florida into the Gulf of Mexico. In addition to being home to North America's only coral reef, the Keys themselves are partly made of coral as well. Specifically, the Upper Keys are made of the remains of ancient coral reefs that thrived during the Pleistocene epoch 125,000 years ago, when sea levels were much higher. Meanwhile, the Lower Keys are mostly made of sandbars. Fact 37. The US had a city larger than London in 1100. The Cahokia Mounds are a popular tourist attraction in Illinois and are the largest pre-Columbian site north of Mexico. They're also the remains of a massive Native American city that was flourishing all the way back in the 12th century. The mounds cover around 4,000 acres, or 1,600 hectares, and based on the findings there, archaeologists estimate the population to have been around 20,000 people in 1100. At that time, the city of London had just over 15,000 people. Details about the civilization, including why it ended up disappearing, remain unknown to this day, though. Fact 36. The Salton Sea was the result of poor construction and led to its abandonment. In 1905, an irrigation canal was being built in the Imperial Valley near the then Salton Sink that had formed thanks to the San Andreas Fault activity in the area. During the construction, the Colorado River breached a shoddy canal, leading to water pouring into the sink, making it the Salton Sea. Though this would soon make it a premier destination within California, the way it was formed would also lead to its downfall. The Salton Sea kept getting replenished by the irrigation runoff in the area, but there was one big problem. The water flowing in had nowhere to go. Over time, it kept depositing salt until the sea became 50% saltier than the ocean. This killed off most of the fish and other living things in the sea, leading to dead animal bodies washing up on shore and a stench that remains to this day. Local hotels had no way to put a positive spin on that, and eventually, the Salton Sea was mostly abandoned. Fact 35. There's only one tropical rainforest in U.S. territory. El Yunque National Forest is on the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico. Most of the mainland U.S., with the exception of the very tip of Florida, doesn't have the climate to support a rainforest, making El Yunque the only tropical rainforest on U.S. territory. Even at a massive 29,000 acres, it's still one of the smallest forests within the U.S. It's also one of the most diverse when it comes to plants and wildlife. That being said, the U.S. does have plenty of temperate rainforests in the Pacific Northwest and Appalachian Mountains, one of the most famous being in Washington's Olympic National Park. Fact 34. Water flows into 3 oceans from one mountain. In Montana's Glacier National Park lies the Triple Divide Peak. Though most water in the US flows toward one ocean, depending on which watershed it's located in, water from the Triple Divide Peak flows into the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and even the Arctic Ocean. That's because 3 massive river systems come together at this point. Water can either go into the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, ending up in the Gulf of Mexico, the Columbia River that empties into the Pacific Ocean, or the Saskatchewan River that winds up into Hudson Bay, and eventually the Arctic Ocean. Fact 33. Niagara Falls is not the tallest waterfall in the US. The honor of the tallest waterfall in the country goes to Yosemite Falls in Yosemite National Park. Water at the top of the waterfall plunges 2,400 feet toward the base below. Niagara Falls is famous partly because it provides a very scenic view, but mostly because it's the largest waterfall by width and volume. At peak flow, more than 700,000 gallons per second rush towards its base at 25 miles an hour. Number 32. St. Augustine is the oldest continuously inhabited town in the US. Spanish explorers founded St. Augustine, Florida in 1565, making it the oldest continuously inhabited town in the US. Older Native American settlements unfortunately can't lay claim to that title, as most of them were forcibly abandoned. Fact number 31. Oklahoma has a panhandle because of slavery. Take a look at a US map, and you might spot something unusual. A narrow strip of land stretching across the top of Texas but belonging to Oklahoma. This panhandle is just 34 miles wide, making it one of the most distinctive quirks of the state's shape. Originally, it belonged to Texas, who wanted to enter the Union as a slave-owning state. Thanks to the Missouri Compromise, slavery wasn't allowed north of the 36-degree 30-minute latitude. So, Texas gave up a small sliver of its northern border for slavery. That land is now known as No Man's Land, and less than 1% of Oklahomans live there. Fact number 30. Cimarron County is the only county to border 4 states. Speaking of the Panhandle, thanks to its odd geography, it's also home to the only state to border 4 other states. Cimarron County, located in the western end of the Oklahoma Panhandle, borders Texas, Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico. It has a population of almost 2,200, so very few people get to experience the ease of traveling to 4 states from there. Fact 29. Allen, South Dakota is the most landlocked point in the Western Hemisphere. Allen, South Dakota is the most inaccessible place by sea in the entire US, 1,025 miles from both the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Today, it's part of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in Bennett County. Number 28. Texas is bigger than any country fully in the European continent. Everything's bigger in Texas, including, apparently, the state itself. Excluding Russia, which has most of its landmass in Asia, Texas is bigger than any individual European country fully on the continent itself. The state has an area of over 268,000 square miles. The biggest European country is Ukraine, at an area of almost 233,000 square miles, followed by France at an area of around 210,000 square miles. Fact number 27. Maryland is the only state with no natural lakes. You might think that the dry, desert-covered southwestern states would lack lakes, but no. Maryland is actually the only U.S. state without natural lakes. Lake Haby and Deep Creek Lake, 2 known Maryland lakes, are both man-made. Even Arizona has naturally occurring Mormon Lake and Stoneman Lake, though they occasionally dry up during long droughts. Fact number 26. Vermont was its own country for 14 years. People may think of Texas as the once independent state that also thinks of independence again from time to time, but actually, Vermont was its own country for 14 years. After the start of the Revolutionary War in 1776, Vermont decided it wasn't being treated well by either the British king or the state of New York, so it may as well go in its own direction. It declared itself independent in 1777. The newly formed country had its own currency and its own constitution, one that abolished slavery and gave all free men the right to vote. Though Vermont joined the newly formed United States in 1791, it still references its constitution when passing and enforcing laws today. Fact number 25. New York is south of Rome. It may sound strange, given New York's brisk winters and Rome's sunny reputation, but it's true. Most of Europe is warmed by the Atlantic current, making European places at the same latitude as US cities significantly warmer. New York is on almost the same latitude as Madrid. That's why, while the average high temperature in Rome in January is 55 degrees Fahrenheit, in New York it's 39 degrees Fahrenheit instead. Fact number 24. Louisiana is losing land to the Gulf of Mexico. Due to increasing water levels and coastline erosion, Louisiana is slowly but steadily losing land to the Gulf of Mexico. And more than you might expect. Scientists estimate that every 100 minutes, Louisiana loses the equivalent of a football field to the Gulf. This is alarming news for everyone who lives in those areas, including the residents of New Orleans and the surrounding regions. One prediction estimates that at this rate, by 2080, substantial parts of southern Louisiana will be underwater completely. Fact 23. Oklahoma has the most tornadoes per capita. Oklahoma gets the not at all wanted distinction of being home to the most tornadoes per square mile than any other state in the US. The state gets around 50 tornadoes every year, most of them in the spring months between March and May, but they can also happen anytime. That's because Oklahoma is right in the middle of Tornado Alley, a stretch in the middle of the country where conditions are ripe for tornadoes to form. It's one of the only such geographic locations in the world, thanks to the clash between cold, dry air moving south from Canada and warm, moist air moving north from the Gulf of Mexico. Fact number 22. The Outer Banks are migrating west. Scientists have observed that the Outer Banks, located on the easternmost edge of North Carolina, are slowly moving west. This is thanks to the fact that the Outer Banks are sandbars that aren't anchored to anything. Every time there's a storm or strong winds, waves will pick up the sand from the lower eastern shores and deposit it further west. Over time, this is literally changing the location of the islands. Fact number 21. Hawaii's Big Island is growing. Some places in the US are steadily losing land, but others are apparently growing. Hawaii's Big Island, the youngest member of the Hawaiian archipelago, has gained around 500 acres of land since 1983. This is due to the island's frequent volcanic activity, as Kilauea and Mauna Loa still erupt from time to time. The lava flows eventually cool down and become new land deposits. This isn't happening with other older Hawaiian islands like Oahu and Kauai because they're no longer actively volcanic, so their shoreline is slowly eroding instead. But the Big Island is determined to live up to its name. Fact 20. Arizona is the only state that contains all 4 US deserts. Well, a part of all 4 of them, at least. The 4 major US deserts are the Great Basin, the Sonoran, the Chihuahuan, and the Mojave Deserts, and all of them come together, unsurprisingly, in one of the US's driest, hottest states. Fact number 19. You can mine for diamonds in Arkansas. People usually associate diamond mines with far-off destinations, but there's a massive diamond mine right here in the US, located in Arkansas. Crater of Diamonds State Park in Murfreesboro is a volcanic site that formed thousands of diamonds over millennia. Not only can you visit the park to learn about its volcanic origins and diamond mining, but you can actually look for diamonds yourself. And the chance of finding one isn't as tiny as you might think. So far, visitors have found over 35,000 diamonds in the park, including the largest diamond ever discovered in the US, a 40.23 carat gem nicknamed Uncle Sam. Fact number 18, and my favorite on this list. Kansas is flatter than a pancake. Literally. There's a lot of jokes about how flat the Midwest is, but some scientists decided to test out exactly how true those jokes were. Geographers from Texas State University and Arizona State University teamed up in 2003 to discover that some parts of Kansas are, quite literally, flatter than your average pancake. Fact 17. 11 states in the US have just one area code. Densely populated cities in the United States have multiple area codes for their phone numbers, out of necessity since they have to distribute numbers to millions and millions of people. On the flip side, 11 states in the US have such small populations that the entire state has only one area code. They include Alaska at 907, Wyoming 307, Delaware 302, New Hampshire 603, Maine 207, North Dakota 701, South Dakota 605, Vermont 802, Montana 406, Hawaii 808, and Rhode Island with 401. Fact number 16, Arizona has one of the best preserved meteor craters on Earth. While the famous meteor that killed the dinosaurs landed in what is today the Gulf of Mexico, meteors have left other craters all over the world. In fact, one of the best preserved meteor craters in the world is located in Arizona. The Barringer Crater was formed over 50,000 years ago and now sits around 40 miles east of Flagstaff. You can walk to the crater's rim, but going into the crater itself is not allowed. Scientists think that the asteroid that formed it was only 98 feet to 164 feet wide, but it hit with such an enormous force that it left a 570-foot deep wound in the Earth's surface. Fact number 15. Utah is home to the largest natural bridge in the US. The US has its fair share of engineering marvels, including iconic bridges like the Golden Gate and the Brooklyn Bridge. However, it's also home to some enormous natural bridges. Fittingly located in Arches National Park, Landscape Arch in Utah spans 290 feet in total. Others claim it extends over 300 feet, but the official measurement maxes out at 290. It's also a relatively thin, delicate-looking arch, only 6 feet wide at its narrowest point. A portion of it actually fell down in the 1990s, making it even thinner, but the arch is still hanging on today. Fact number 14. Only Maine shares a border with exactly one other state. Maine is the only state in the US to share its border with just one other state, New Hampshire. To the north, it borders Canada. If you were to take a road trip through the contiguous 48 states and had to only cross each state once, you would inevitably start or end up in Maine. Fact number 13. Michigan has a floating post office. If you need to send your mail to a ship worker on the Detroit River, you'd better address it to zip code 48222. Known as the only floating zip code in the United States, it belongs to the postal ship J.W. Westcott II. It goes up and down the river, delivering mail to workers on nearby vessels. This is the only floating post office and zip code in the country. Fact number 12. Wisconsin has an official state microbe. Many states have state plants, state mottos, or state birds. But Wisconsin is the only state to have an official state microbe. But for Wisconsin, the microbe Lactococcus lactis is incredibly important to both its population and its economy. That's because Lactococcus lactis is used in cheesemaking, arguably Wisconsin's most important industry. The state is the biggest cheese producer in the US, making 2 to 3.5 billion pounds of cheese every year. And its dairy industry makes up 6.5% of the state's entire economy. Fact 11. One town in the US experiences full polar night. Utqiagvik, formerly known as Barrow, experiences a full 64 days of polar night. From mid-November to mid-January, the sun doesn't rise at all, and the town is bathed in darkness. Between 4,300 and 5,000 people live in Utqiagvik, actually making it the 12th most populated city in Alaska. The population seems to deal with polar night just fine, perhaps because they also have 2 months of full 24/7 summer days to look forward to after that. Fact 10. No one can agree on which state is the most mountainous. Alaska, Colorado, West Virginia, and Nevada all claim to be the most mountainous state in the country. How is it that with all our knowledge of geography today, the winner still can't be decided? Well, it's because each of them is correct in their own way. Alaska claims the title because it has the most mountains of any state, with over 4,000 of them named. But Alaska is also enormous, so a fair amount of it is covered by lowlands as well. Colorado lays claim to the title because, as we said before, It has the highest mean elevation of the US. On the other hand, West Virginia is the only state to be contained within the Appalachian mountain range. However, most of the northwestern part of the state sits on a plateau, and the mountains in West Virginia tend to be much lower than mountains in the west part of the country. Surprisingly, Nevada is the state most densely covered by mountains. Only the Carson Sink and Death Valley can lay claim to being flat. Meanwhile, Nevada has 2,000 named mountains, which may be less overall than Alaska, but way more per capita. Plus, almost everywhere you stand in Nevada, you can see a mountain somewhere in front of you. That makes it the winner, in our opinion. Fact 9. South Carolina has an island full of monkeys where humans aren't allowed. Morgan Island off the state of South Carolina is home to over 4,000 rhesus monkeys. Oh wait, actually, the US government only placed 1,400 of them, but over time, their population expanded. If you want to see the monkeys, however, you'll have to take a boat trip around the island, as only approved researchers are allowed to step foot on the coast. Scientists are afraid of people disturbing or harming the animal population, a thing humans are prone to doing. Fact number 8. Kentucky has a moonbow. Though most people are familiar with rainbows, few know what a moonbow is. Perhaps because the conditions needed to form a moonbow are quite rare. But at Cumberland Falls in Kentucky, the mist at the base of the falls sometimes reflects the light coming off an especially bright and full or nearly full moon. This creates what locals call a moonbow. Fact number 7. Mount Washington recorded the fastest wind speed on Earth. Those who live in New Hampshire know that the hike up Mount Washington is deceptively dangerous and difficult, proven by the many search and rescue missions undertaken there every year. That's partly due to the harsh weather that batters the mountain, which may be why the fastest wind speed ever recorded on Earth was noted here in 1934. On one horrific day, the wind clocked in at 231 miles an hour. To understand just how fast that is, think of the fact that the Porsche 911, one of the world's premier sport cars, tops out at only 204 miles an hour. A skydiver falling headfirst towards the Earth will generally only reach 160 miles an hour. The wind only needs to reach 120 miles an hour to knock you down. So a speed of 230 miles an hour would quite literally throw you off the mountain. Fact number 6. Engineers made the Chicago River flow backwards. In the 19th century, the rapidly expanding town of Chicago had a problem. Though it had a prime location on the Chicago River, the river was actually flowing towards Lake Michigan, which happened to be the city's drinking water supply, and what it was carrying was sewage and waste. One day, William Boldenweck, the head of the sanitary district of Chicago, got an idea. What if he just reversed the river's flow? And he was serious. In 1900, after 8 years, the removals of 42 cubic yards of soil and rock and the construction of a 28-mile-long canal, that's exactly what he did. Fact number 5. Buford had a population of 1 up until 2012. People driving through rural Wyoming would sometimes come across the town of Buford and do a double take when they saw the welcome sign. Buford, population 1, elevation 8,000. The sole resident, Don Salmons, had lived in the area since 1980 with his family. After his wife died in 1992, Salmons decided to buy the town and began operating the Buford Trading Post. His son moved away in 2008, and Salmons eventually closed the store in 2012 and put the town up for auction. Fact number 4. Kansas City has a massive underground complex. Kansas City, Missouri has one of the largest underground business complexes in the world, named Subtropolis. Over 6 million feet of space are carved into the ground for this complex, which sits 150 feet below the city's surface. Today, the complex is mostly used as storage for e-commerce, pharmaceuticals, cars, records, and food distribution, to name a few, so the products can be kept away from exposure to the elements. Fact number 3. You can see the Earth curve at Bonneville Salt Flats. Located in Utah, the Bonneville Salt Flats are so flat, smooth, and never-ending that you can literally see the Earth curve when you look out at them on a clear day. The alien-looking landscape is mostly known for being a place where people set land speed records, thanks to the aforementioned flatness. Fact number 2. One Hawaiian island is closed to the public. Unlike most private islands, Niihau wasn't closed to push locals out. It was preserved to protect them. Niihau has been owned by the Robinson family since 1864. They maintain strict control over who can visit the island to conserve the island's flora, fauna, and the indigenous culture of Niihau as well. The only people allowed on Niihau are native Hawaiian inhabitants, the Robinson family themselves, and invited guests. Finally, fact number 1. The U.S. town of Rough and Ready once declared itself an independent republic. Rough and Ready is located near Sacramento in California. In 1850, frustrated over the mining taxes and taxes on alcohol, it declared its independence from the Union, forming the Great Republic of Rough and Ready. The reason you may not have learned about this in history books is because independence only lasted 3 months. Strangely, until July 4th. Feeling a surge of patriotism on the rest of the country's Independence Day, the citizens of Rough and Ready rejoined the United States. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. Really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack. Did you know that one U.S. interstate runs underwater, while another passes through the middle of a mountain range? America's highways are much more fascinating than you might have ever imagined. Here are 50 facts to prove it. With number 50, let's start at the beginning. Did you know that the official name for the American Interstate Highway System is technically the Dwight D. Eisenhower System of Interstate and Defense Highways? That's because it was the 34th president who signed the Federal Aid Highway Act in 1956. This essentially paved the way, no pun intended, for the almost 49,000 plus miles of highways that would make up this incredible network and connect the US states together. But wait until you hear about why Eisenhower was so eager to get the highways built. Number 49. Eisenhower's interstate system wasn't just about safer civilian travel. It was also a Cold War defense strategy. With the threat of nuclear war looming, he envisioned highways that could rapidly evacuate major cities if they were targeted. The network also served a military purpose, allowing troops, weapons, and supplies to move quickly across the country in a crisis. Number 48. The interstate system had an initial budget of $25 billion, and those in charge thought that they would construct the entire system in about 12 years. They were way off. In the end, it took a whopping 35 years to build the system. As for the cost, that shot up to $114 billion, more than 4 times the original estimate. In today's money, that would be the equivalent of over $600 billion, which shows what a truly huge undertaking the interstate system really was. And more money is still being poured into it today, with several highways still under construction. Number 47. The idea for the interstate highways actually came from overseas. From Germany, to be precise. During the Second World War, Eisenhower was wowed by the efficiency of the German autobahns, or highways. He vowed to construct a similar highway network far and wide across the United States, and famously stated, after seeing the autobahns of modern Germany and knowing the asset those highways were to the Germans, I decided to put an emphasis on this kind of road building. Germany made me see the wisdom of broader ribbons across the land. Next up, number 46. There's a famous myth that says 1 in every 5 miles of interstate road has to be perfectly straight so that planes can land on it in emergencies. That's not true. However, it is true that planes can and have landed on interstate highways. It actually happens more often than you might think, but it's usually small planes, not jumbo jets, that stick the landing. In 2018, for example, a student pilot in a small plane had to land on I-8 in San Diego County after suffering engine trouble. Speaking of the I-8, food fans will certainly be surprised by the next fact about it. Number 45. I-8 is an interesting interstate highway for a couple of key reasons. It runs from San Diego in California to Casa Grande in Arizona, around 350 miles in total. About half of its length is in California, with the other half in Arizona, but that's not the most interesting thing. What is interesting, especially for avocado toast and guacamole fans, is that almost half of America's entire avocado crop grows in the areas alongside I-8. Additionally, I-8 is one of the few places where the interstate actually drops below sea level. drivers descend more than 50 feet as they traverse the Imperial Valley. But one other part of the interstate system goes much lower than that. Fact number 44. One interstate highway passes underwater. It's the I-95. That's the main north-south highway running down the east coast from the Canadian border to Miami, Florida. At one point, while going through Baltimore, drivers on the I-95 enter a tunnel. That is the Fort McHenry Tunnel, which actually goes underneath Baltimore Harbor, reaching 107 feet below sea level. That's the lowest point anywhere across the entire interstate highway system. The tunnel itself was built back in the 80s. For many years, it was the most expensive individual project across the whole interstate network. Now, tens of millions of vehicles pass through the tunnel each year. Fact number 43. That's the lowest point covered. Now let's talk about the highest point, and you might be surprised at how high America's highways can go. Interestingly, the highest part of the interstate network is also a tunnel, but this one doesn't pass underwater. Instead, it passes through the Continental Divide of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. It's the Eisenhower Tunnel, named in honor of the same man who gave us the interstates. At its peak, the tunnel is over 11,100 feet above sea level. It was the highest tunnel in the world when it opened back in 1973, and it's the longest mountain tunnel across the entire interstate highway network. Moving on to fact number 42, many people take highways for granted nowadays. They don't realize just how helpful these huge roads actually are. Before the interstate highways were built, it could take literally months to get from one side of the US to the other. Eisenhower himself was part of one convoy that spent 62 days going from Washington, D.C. to California, covering less than 60 miles a day due to the harsh conditions and lack of roads. These days, thanks to the highways, that same journey can be done in about 42 hours. Fact number 41. While it may seem random at first glance, the interstate highway numbering system actually makes a lot of sense. The most important routes are the ones ending in either 0 or 5. Those that end in 0, like the I-10 and I-40, run horizontally across the US from east to west. Meanwhile, all of the ones that go vertically, from north to south, have numbers that end in 5, like the I-15 and I-25. So you can tell whether you're going north to south or east to west across the US based on the number of the highway you're driving on. If you think that's interesting, there are several more highway number facts coming up that might amaze you as well. Fact number 40. So you know how the major interstate highway numbers work, but you may not be aware of the fact that they're laid out in a very precise order. To be more precise, the lower numbers start in the south and west part of the countries, and the numbers get higher as you move north and east. For example, I-10 runs across many southern states and is even close to the border with Mexico at certain points, while I-90 stretches across the northern states and approaches the border with Canada. Fact number 39, I-5 is the only continuous interstate highway that connects to both the Canadian border at its northernmost point and the Mexican border at its southern tip. It almost reaches a staggering 1,400 miles from one end to the other. Number 38, there's no Interstate 50 or 60. Ever notice that there's no I-50 or I-60? Well, that was intentional. Planners feared confusion since US Highways 50 and 60 already existed in overlapping states. Imagine being told, just take the 50. Would that mean the original Highway 50 or a new I-50? To avoid mix-ups, those numbers were skipped entirely, keeping navigation clear and efficient. Just another example of how even small decisions in highway planning can have a big impact on everyday travel. Number 37, interstate highways don't just have major routes like I-10 and I-45. They also have minor branches with their own numbering system. These 3-digit interstates keep the last 2 digits of the major highway they connect to, like I-185 branching from I-85. But the first digit reveals even more. Even numbers mean the road loops back to the main highway, whereas odd numbers mean it's a spur that doesn't reconnect. It's a simple but clever system that helps drivers navigate more efficiently. Fact number 36. The shortest complete highway is over 3,000 miles shorter than the longest. I-97 holds the title of the shortest complete interstate highway at just over 17 miles. It stretches across Maryland from Annapolis to Baltimore, and it only covers a single county, Anne Arundel County. As for the biggest, that would be I-90. It runs over 3,000 miles in total, stretching from Seattle in the west to Boston in the east, and passing through 13 states in total. This just goes to show how varied the US highway network truly is. Some of its roads take a matter of minutes to drive from one end to the other, while others take several days to traverse. Another fascinating length fact is coming right up, with number 35. One of America's highways is part of the longest road on the planet. That would be the Pan American Highway, which, as the name might indicate, stretches across both North and South America. It runs from Alaska, through Canada, across the contiguous US, through Mexico and Central America, where it's interrupted by an area of marshland known as the Darien Gap. From there, it continues along the western edge of South America. It finishes in Argentina, stretching a whopping 19,000 miles in total. Several U.S. interstate highways form part of this road, like I-5, I-15, I-25, and I-35. So if you've driven on any of those, you've technically driven on the world's longest road. Fact number 34. Have you ever wondered which interstate is the oldest? The answer isn't so simple. Several states claim the title, and no one can quite agree. According to the Federal Highway Administration, the first official interstate construction began in 1956 on US 40, now part of I-70 in Missouri. But Kansas disputes this, since its section of US 40, also I-70, was already under construction before the interstate system even existed, though it was finished with interstate funds. Then there's Pennsylvania, where the Pennsylvania Turnpike, built in 1940, functioned much like the interstates that would follow. So, which one is truly the oldest? That depends on who you ask. Fact number 33. Here's a fact that'll help you get a sense of the scale of the interstate project. Close to 42 billion cubic yards of earth were moved to make way for the highways. That's by far the biggest earth-moving project in the history of the planet. For comparison's sake, only 362 million cubic yards of earth were moved for the construction of the Panama Canal. That's over 100 times less. But wait, the next fact is even more astonishing. Number 32. Have you ever stopped to think about just how much concrete was needed to build the interstate system? It's hard to imagine, but this fact might make it a little easier for you to picture. According to experts, you could use all the concrete from the interstate system to make a 50-foot high and 9-foot wide wall all the way around the Earth's equator. Fact number 31. The interstate system is still technically a work in progress. It's not done, not by a long shot. Various projects are still ongoing all across the country. New sections of highway are still being worked on and planned for future openings, growing the interstate system 1 mile at a time. For example, the I-27 in Texas has historically linked the cities of Lubbock and Amarillo. But in 2022, planners decided to extend it further, stretching into Raton, New Mexico to the north and Laredo, Texas to the south. But that's not all. Fact number 30, there are plans in place for several future highways that may be added to the interstate system in the years to come. This list includes I-3, which would stretch from Savannah, Georgia to Knoxville, Tennessee, I-42, which would connect Oklahoma and Arkansas, I-67, which has various possible routes across Indiana, Michigan, and Kentucky, and I-99, which would run from Wilson, North Carolina to Christiana, Delaware. Obviously, not all of these plans will come to fruition, but this just shows how the interstate is a dynamic, evolving system, and it's likely to look very different 100 years from now. Fact number 29. Not all interstates go to plan. In fact, one of them earned the nickname the Highway to Nowhere after its construction was effectively canceled. That particular highway was Interstate 170. It was supposed to run just 2.3 miles across Baltimore, Maryland. The idea was that it would link downtown Baltimore with the I-70, giving people faster access in and out of the heart of the city. But locals protested and the project was canned. This left the area with a small stretch of highway with no real purpose, hence the name Highway to Nowhere. Fact number 28. You might think that the interstate system is just for the contiguous United States. After all, the word interstate suggests that these roads are joining states together, so that wouldn't really work in places like Alaska or Hawaii. In fact, the interstate system does operate in both of those places, as well as in Puerto Rico. All three of these locations receive interstate funding from the federal government. Hawaii has 4 interstate highways, Alaska has 4 as well, and Puerto Rico has 3. Fact number 27. Out of all the major highways in America, I-70 might be the most fascinating to drive. Stretching over 2,150 miles, it takes travelers through bustling cities, vast natural landscapes, and quirky roadside attractions. It holds the record for the highest point in the entire interstate system at the Eisenhower Tunnel in Colorado. Along the way, it crosses both urban hubs and remote wilderness, offering some of the most scenic and diverse routes in the country. And for those who love roadside oddities, I-70 doesn't disappoint. It even passes the world's largest rocking chair in Casey, Illinois. But there's one more thing about I-70 that sets it apart. Fact number 26. If you ever plan a road trip along I-70, make sure you have a full tank of gas and a case of snacks before you hit the road. Why? Because this particular interstate is home to the longest stretch of highway without any service stations. As it winds through eastern Utah, the I-70 has about a 105-mile stretch without a single station. It's just you and the open road. Next up, number 25. You might think that every interstate is unique. There's only one I-40, for example, but that rule doesn't apply to all of them. In fact, some of the interstate numbers, the ones used on smaller and less important highways, are reused in different locations. There's an I-76 in Pennsylvania and another I-76 in Colorado, for example. There are also 2 I-87s, one in New York and one in North Carolina. Now, that might seem confusing, but the key is that all of these duplicates are situated in completely different parts of the country, so you're very unlikely to get mixed up between them. Next up, number 24. There are strict regulations for what makes an interstate highway. These roads aren't run-of-the-mill. They're designed to specific standards. For example, they have to have at least 2 12-foot wide travel lanes going in each direction, along with a 10-foot wide paved shoulder on the far side. They also undergo rigorous testing to ensure that they can handle heavy traffic without wearing down. Next up, number 23. Ever wondered which was the most expensive highway to build? Well, if you thought the answer was somewhere in the contiguous United States, you'd be wrong. We have to travel to Hawaii, the Aloha State, to find the most expensive American highway. The Hawaiian H3 takes that title, at least in terms of cost per mile. It cost more than $1.3 billion to build, and it's barely 15 miles long. That works out to around $80 million for every mile of road. Let's stick with the H3 for our next fascinating fact. Number 22. The H3 interstate wasn't just the most pricey to construct, it was also one of the most frustrating and time-consuming projects across the entire interstate network. The project spent nearly 4 decades in so-called development hell, due to protests and objections from the indigenous Hawaiian people. The people were primarily worried that to make way for H3, a historical stone with ancient petroglyphs would have to be removed. They didn't want that, so they fought against the project wholeheartedly. In the end, H3's path was rerouted and the stone was preserved. But even now, many locals aren't exactly happy about H3's existence. And they weren't the only ones unhappy about the interstate. Fact number 21. When the interstate project was first unveiled, many of the planners behind it expected it would be warmly received across the nation. After all, it had plenty of benefits. It improved accessibility and gave people faster, more convenient ways across the country. But not everyone was pleased. Many residents along the planned highway routes feared the impact on their property values and communities. Many took to the streets and protested. There were over 120 highway-related protests nationwide between October 1967 and June of 1968. Fact number 20. We've looked at the longest, the shortest, the lowest, and the highest of the interstate highways. Next, let's talk about the busiest. That unique distinction belongs to Interstate 405, known to locals in Southern California simply as the 405. Part of the San Diego Freeway, the 405 is statistically the busiest and most congested stretch of highway in the entire U.S. Parts of it have seen close to 400,000 vehicles pass through in a single day. But the next highway traffic fact is even more extraordinary. Number 19. The interstate highways are huge. We've already covered how they stretch for more than 49,000 miles in total and have enough concrete to form a wall that could wrap around the entire Earth. But here's a shocking stat. Despite their enormous size, interstate highways only account for around 1% of America's entire roads. And here's an even more surprising figure: 24% of all America's travel takes place on the interstate, and over 40% of all truck mileage as well. So while they may only be a small fraction of the vast web of roads winding across America, interstate highways are hugely important for national travel and transportation. Number 18. It's difficult to understand the amount of miles that have been traveled along America's interstate highways over the years, but this next stat really puts it into perspective. Imagine if every single person from California, New York, New Jersey, and Texas, that's tens of millions of people, took a trip to the moon. Added up, they'd travel the same number of miles that have been driven on the interstates. Fact number 17. It's technically not an interstate, but Route 66 is still one of the most famous highways in the United States. It's widely known as the ultimate road trip destination, the perfect road to see America. But it didn't start that way. You might be surprised to learn that this massive road joining the big cities of Chicago and Los Angeles was actually made for farmers. It provided a commercial route for crop transportation across America. It was later used for transporting military supplies. It took several decades before it became known as a road trip and adventure destination. Number 16. You can almost always tell when you're on an interstate thanks to the iconic red, white, and blue shield signs. But not always. Some interstates don't display shields at all, even though they're still part of the system. One example is I-595 in Maryland, which shares the same stretch of road as US 50. To avoid confusion, only US 50 signs are posted, leaving I-595 virtually unmarked. This approach helps simplify navigation, ensuring drivers don't get overwhelmed by multiple route numbers. So, next time you're on the road, you might be driving an interstate without even realizing it. Next, an even more interesting fact about the famous interstate shield signs. Number 15. Ever wondered who designed the famous interstate highway shield? Well, the man behind that iconic emblem was Richard Oliver. He worked at the Texas Highway Department back in the 1950s. That was when the government requested design ideas from across the nation. Lots of ideas were sent in. Allegedly, some of them were quite different from the ones we know now. One design was striped in red, white, and blue, for example, and another had an eagle. Many designs also included an I before the highway number, but in the end, Oliver's simple, clear design was selected. Number 14. Let's talk about bridges next. There are tens of thousands of them spread out across the interstate highway system. Many were actually built back in the late 1960s, but more have appeared over the years. Many are quite small and pretty insignificant, but some are absolutely massive. The biggest one of all is the Manchac Swamp Bridge. It carries I-55 across Louisiana's Manchac Swamp, and it runs for almost 23 miles. Another mega interstate bridge is the Mackinac Bridge, nicknamed Big Mac. It connects the upper and lower peninsulas of Michigan. Next, another bridge-related fact with a truly wacky story attached. Number 13. In 1919, the Dixie Overland Highway from San Diego, California to Savannah, Georgia was almost complete, but there was one waterway in its way, the Tombigbee River in Alabama. A bridge had to be built over the river, and local people made a committee to raise half of the necessary funds. To do that, they held a rooster auction. Yes, they auctioned off roosters, and several world leaders even contributed their own roosters to be the stars of the show. The auction raised tens of thousands of dollars, but not enough to cover the bridge. The state ended up paying the rest, but locals referred to the bridge as Rooster Bridge for decades. Fact number 12. Interstate highways aren't exactly evenly spread out across America. Some regions and states have way more of them than others. But which has the most? Well, if you're talking in terms of mileage, Texas is the king. The Lone Star State has over 3,200 miles of interstate highways in total. But if you're wondering which state has the highest number of interstates, that would be New York, with an impressive tally of 31. That's a lot more than the likes of Delaware and New Mexico, which only have 3 each. Number 11. There are no strict rules governing the shape of interstate highways. Many people assume that these major roads have to be constructed in very specific ways. There's also the famous myth, which says that at least 20% of all interstates have to be straight and flat. In reality, highways can curve, twist, and turn as needed based on terrain and safety considerations. In fact, the Federal Highway Administration supports curvier designs as they help keep drivers engaged and reduce the risk of distraction or drowsiness. Fact number 10. One of the big benefits of the interstate system is that it helped make road travel safer for generations of Americans. But that doesn't mean that accidents can't happen on these huge highways. Several interstates rank among the most dangerous roads in the US, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. These roads include I-95, along with I-20 and I-35. So drivers are urged to take great care on these roads and highways in general, especially at night or in otherwise difficult conditions. Number 9. Every state owns its pieces of interstate. If it passes across state ground, then it's under the control and authority of that specific state. This also means that it's up to each state to set its own highway speed limits. And while the common speed limit for interstate travel is 70 miles an hour, you can find many sections of highway where the maximum speed is different. In Hawaii, for example, many sections of highway have max speeds of 50 miles an hour. Number 8. One of the most expensive pieces of interstate highway is the stretch of I-70 that flows through Glenwood Canyon in Colorado. It's said to have cost almost $500 million to build just a 12-mile stretch of road. This was because of the difficult terrain, plus the fact that local officials wanted to preserve as much of the natural beauty in the area as possible. According to some stories, constructors were even offered a bonus for every tree they avoided cutting down. The next wild money fact is coming right up. Number 7. Some highways come with tolls that drivers have to pay to use them. Now, most tolls don't cost all that much, a few dollars here, a few dollars there, but some of the pricier ones might just astound you. Whiteface Mountain Memorial Highway in New York, for example, costs over $20 for a standard 2-axle vehicle and extra for each passenger. But that pales in comparison to the number 1 most expensive: the Pennsylvania Turnpike, which many consider to be one of the first ever major highways in America. It costs over $100 for cars to travel this highway, while trucks can pay more than $200. Luckily, there are almost always alternative routes to take if you'd prefer not to pay. Fact number 6. Sticking with the subject of money, have you ever wondered how much it costs to maintain America's many highways? Billions. Tens of billions, in fact, every single year. That money goes towards repairing damage, maintaining the roads and structures that support them, and extending sections of highways too. It's a huge amount, but when you think about how vast and important the interstates are, the colossal price tag doesn't necessarily seem all that bad. This leads us to number 5. Some of the cash set aside for highway maintenance is spent on pothole repairs, and US highways have historically had some of the biggest and most dangerous potholes in the country. One of them appeared on the I-75 in Detroit in 2015. It measured 2 feet by 3 feet, and it caused over 25 flat tires in a single day before repair workers arrived on the scene to sort it out. Another famous case happened on I-435 in 2024. Around a dozen vehicles wound up with flat tires from that one, which was said to be a foot deep. So make sure to keep your eyes peeled on the interstate. You never know when potholes might appear. Fact number 4. Parts of 2 US highways are quite literally paved with gold. To be precise, we're referring to US 81 and US 287 here, both in Montauk County in Texas. The sand that was used to form the concrete for portions of these 2 highways was taken from a local pit. That pit contained trace amounts of gold, which ended up within the road itself. There's even a historical marker in the area to commemorate this intriguing fact. Fact number 3. In the not-too-distant future, the interstates as we know them could start to look very different. In recent years, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, or NEVI program, was introduced to fund the installation of rapid electric vehicle charging ports along the many miles of highways across America. Work is already underway on this, and it's expected that chargers will appear at least once every 50 miles of interstate. This is all part of the push towards wider EV adoption, and we might even see wireless charging technology built into the road itself further down the line. Fact number 2. Pretty much everything in your home has most likely traveled along the interstates in some form or another. That includes the food in your kitchen, the furniture in your living room, and even the clothes on your back. Since these highways are so important for logistics and transport across the United States, they're used daily to transport tons upon tons of materials and products from place to place. In many ways, highways are the lifeblood of modern-day America as we know it. And finally, fact number 1. There aren't many man-made structures that are visible from space, but the American interstate system is one of them. That doesn't mean you'd be able to see it from the moon or spot it with the naked eye while taking a rocket ship ride around the Earth. However, the Federal Highway Administration has stated that from heights of around 155 miles, astronauts can make out sections of the interstate highways with the aid of binoculars. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack. Did you know that England still owns part of the United States, or that an Iowa town found itself on the opposite side of a river overnight? What if we told you the Grand Canyon isn't the deepest canyon in the country? Then why is it so famous then? Well, we're about to explain all of this to you. So prepare for 50 absolutely mind-blowing US geography facts you probably didn't know. Starting with fact 50, the longest place name in the United States is, stay with me here, Lake Chagagagog-Manchagagog-Chabunagungamog. With 45 characters within its name, Lake Chagagagog-Manchagagog-Chabunagungamog, located in Massachusetts, is the longest place name in the country and the third longest in the world. And it took me all morning to practice it. It's a Nipmuc name, from the language of the indigenous people who used to live in that area. So, what does Lake Chagagagog-Manchagagog-Chabunagungamog translate to? English knifemen and Nipmuc Indians at the boundary or neutral fishing place. Of course, it's now nicknamed Webster Lake, so people can make picnic or fishing plans without sounding like they're having a medical emergency. But locals take pride in its extra-long title and have fought to keep it the lake's official name to this day. Fact 49. Texas is even bigger than you think. Did you know that the distance from El Paso to Houston and El Paso to Los Angeles is almost the same? Turns out Texas is really big. El Paso is 700 miles, or about 1,100 kilometers east of LA, and almost 670 miles, or just under 1,100 kilometers west of Houston. In total, Texas is around 770 miles wide, just north of 1,200 kilometers, making it almost 1/10 the entire diameter of Earth. So now that we've gone really big, let's go really tiny. Fact 48. The smallest park in the world is a leprechaun colony in Oregon. Mill-Ends Park is a tiny circular park in Portland, Oregon that measures just 2 feet wide and has just one lonely tree growing on it. It's on the charming, picturesque median strip of Southwest Nido Parkway. In 1948, it was just a patch of dirt meant for a light pole. Local journalist Dick Fagan, whose office overlooked the patch of land, saw weeds growing over time, but there was no light pole in sight. So he planted flowers and named it Mill-Ends after his column. But where do the leprechauns come in? Well, Fagan claims he saw one digging in this patch of grass. He grabbed the leprechaun, who granted him one wish. Fagan asked for a park of his own, so that's what Mill-Ends became. On St. Patrick's Day 1976, Portland signed off on this wild story by dedicating the park as the only leprechaun colony west of Ireland. Fact 47. The U.S.'s deepest lake was formed by a volcanic eruption. In the stunning wilderness of Oregon, you'll find Crater Lake. It's over 1,900 feet deep, making it the deepest lake in the United States. 6 statues of Liberty stacked foot to torch could fit in it. Given the name, it's perhaps unsurprising that the lake was formed by a volcanic eruption. Mount Mazama, part of the Cascade Range, erupted for the last time around 5700 BC and collapsed in on itself from the strength of the eruption. It lost 2,500 to 3,500 feet of height because of that eruption. This formed a caldera that slowly got filled in with water. The symmetrical base of the caldera is why Crater Lake is considered the 10th deepest lake in the world when measured at its deepest point. However, it does hold the title of the deepest lake in the Western Hemisphere based on average depth, just over 1,100 feet or 335 meters. Fact 46. Over half of America's population lives in 10 states. These 10 states are New York, California, Georgia, Texas, Illinois, North Carolina, Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. It's no coincidence that these states include some of the biggest cities in terms of population in the country. Major centers like New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Dallas, Philadelphia, San Diego, Jacksonville, Atlanta, and others give these regions a big population boost. The population of the 10 states mentioned previously adds up to around 170 million people, while the total US population is approximately 345 million. That's not the craziest US population fact, though. Leading us to fact number 45. Los Angeles County has a bigger population than 40 US states. LA County has 9.7 million residents, making it the most populous county in the United States. This also makes it bigger by population than a whopping 40 other US states, placing it right between Michigan, with 10 million people as of 2023, and New Jersey, with around 9.3 million people. A state like Wyoming, on the other hand, is 24 times as large as LA County, yet only has about 580,000 people within its borders. Speaking of that state, fact number 44. Wyoming is named after an area near Scranton, Pennsylvania. It takes almost 24 hours to drive to Cheyenne, Wyoming from Scranton, Pennsylvania. So why in the world is Wyoming named after an area near this East Coast town? Well, the name Wyoming actually comes from the Delaware Indians, which may be derived from their word, Wayumek or Waumek, meaning end of plains. And there are 2 possible reasons it ended up so far west. One is that there was endless debate over what to name this new territory, to the point where Congress got fed up and just randomly gave it this Native American name that fit the new state's geography. The second, and more favored explanation, is that since indigenous people from Delaware were forced west through Ohio, Kansas, and then ended up near and in Wyoming, they took this name along with them. To this day, the area around Scranton is still named Wyoming Valley. Fact 43. Driving south from Detroit takes you into Canada. It's easy to forget that many of Canada's major population centers sit at latitudes that also run through northern states. We often think of Canada as being above the US after all, but one of Canada's most populated peninsulas dips south and west toward Michigan. This means that if you drive south of Detroit, you'll end up in the Canadian city of Windsor. In fact, you don't even have to drive that far. The tunnel that separates the 2 cities is just under a mile long. However, thanks to border checkpoints, the drive is a lot longer than you'd think. It's not the only time the Canadian border was deceiving, though. Fact 42. Some Californians live north of the Canadian border. Most people wouldn't believe this is possible, since we associate California with surf and sand, and Canada with moose and polite tundra-dwelling people. But it's true. California's northern border is at 42 degrees latitude, while Canada's southernmost point is at 41.7 degrees latitude, found at Middle Island in Lake Erie. Then again, some insane geographical phenomena show that borders can always change. Fact 41. The San Andreas Fault swallows almost 2 inches of land in California every year. If you've ever visited California, you've likely heard of the San Andreas Fault. This massive fracture in the Earth marks the boundary where the Pacific Plate, shifting westward toward Japan, and the North American Plate grind against each other, shaking the ground beneath our feet. These plates consume roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters of land each year. At that pace, in 15 million years, San Francisco and Los Angeles could practically be neighbors. Fact number 40. The US has some of the most navigable waterways in the world. One of the reasons the US became so successful is thanks to its huge waterways. Not only do they reach deep into the country's interior, which has some wild hidden features that we'll get to soon, but they are also navigable, meaning deep, wide, and calm. This is unlike other rivers in northern countries that generally freeze over, preventing ships from sailing on. In total, the US has anywhere from 17,600 to 25,000 miles of such waterways that reach 38 separate states. The count varies depending on the source. These waterways allowed trade to flourish in areas far from the coasts, with cargo ships making their way up and down the Mississippi, Missouri, and other rivers in the early days of the country. They supplied new cities and created new economic centers. A lot of the rivers are also interconnecting, enabling people to move through several regions of the US without too much effort. How long are these rivers exactly? Well, that takes us to fact 39. It takes 90 days for one drop of water to travel the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River is over 2,300 miles long. If you spilled a drop of water in the river's source in Minnesota, it would reach the Gulf of Mexico in 90 days, just about 3 months. That's about how long a person averaging 30 miles an hour would need to walk from New York to Los Angeles. Fact 38. Yellowstone National Park is home to a supervolcano. Ever wonder why Yellowstone has so many geysers and hot springs? Turns out it's because the park is an active volcano. Super volcano. Supervolcanoes are named not for their size, but rather for the amount of material they spew in the air. In this case, more than 240 cubic miles, or about 1,000 cubic kilometers. The first major eruption 2.1 million years ago covered an area of almost 5,800 miles with ash, an area about half as big as all of Hawaii. If you have a visit planned, the bad news is that the supervolcano is not extinct. The good news is that the last eruption was 640,000 years ago. Yellowstone is currently dormant, and scientists would have several months of warnings if an eruption were to occur again. Speaking of places with volcanoes, fact number 37. It snows in Hawaii. Though it's known as a tropical destination, Hawaii gets a fair amount of snow every winter thanks to its incredibly tall mountains. The tops of Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, and Haleakala mountains on Maui reach over 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters into the atmosphere and get covered with snow in the winter months. Mauna Kea actually means White Mountain because the top is so often snow-capped. Hawaii also has another cool distinction. Fact number 36. Hawaii is the only state with borders defined by natural features. Many states have some borders defined by natural features, rivers, for example, but Hawaii is the only state bordered exclusively by natural features. Every other state has at least one straight line. Which makes sense since, well, Hawaii is a bunch of islands, otherwise known as an archipelago. It's hard to draw a line when the ocean draws the border for you. Unlike many older European countries, whose borders are usually drawn by mountain ranges, rivers, and other natural features, many US states, especially those in the West and Midwest, were more recently and artificially drawn to follow the lines set by treaties, contracts, and other agreements. That's why the Rocky Mountains barrel through the middle of states like New Mexico and Colorado, which doesn't make much sense as it divides the land instead of neatly forming a border. Fact number 35. The tallest tree in the world is in California, but its location is off-limits. Somewhere deep in California's Redwood National Park lies a 600 to 800-year-old redwood named Hyperion that towers 380 feet or 115 meters over everything around it. However, you can't go take a photo of it because you'll be fined. No formal trail led to the tree itself, as it was kept in a closed area to minimize the amount of damage people could do to it. However, nature and Instagram enthusiasts found it anyway, and rangers started seeing human waste and trash near Hyperion. So, Hyperion is now strictly off-limits, and anyone who tries to approach it and gets caught is looking at a $5,000 fine or 6 months in jail, or both. Park rangers say it's not that impressive anyway, as you can't see the height from the ground, and the trunk isn't that big. But the biggest tree is also in the same state, which leads us to fact number 34. The largest tree in the world is in Sequoia National Park, California. Named General Sherman, fitting for such a stately tree, this redwood measures 52,500 cubic feet, or just under 1,500 cubic meters in total volume. For comparison, that's about 3/5 the size of an Olympic swimming pool. The tree's circumference near the ground is a staggering 103 feet, or over 30 meters. It's an impressive sight, and one of the main attractions of Sequoia National Park. Shockingly, though, this isn't the last tree record the US, or more specifically California, holds. Fact number 33. The world's oldest living tree is in Inyo National Forest. California is great at getting trees to grow. In the White Mountains, researcher Edmund Shulman found a bristlecone pine he estimated to be over 4,600 years old. The tree, named Methuselah, is on the Methuselah Trail, but the Forest Service keeps its exact location a secret. Perhaps that's because when geographer Donald R. Curry found the previous oldest living tree, estimated to be 4,900 years old, he cut it down to take core samples. Regardless, it's cool to imagine that Methuselah was a young sapling around the same time construction started on the Great Pyramid of Giza. Fact 32. The US includes all major biomes. One of the most amazing things about the US, besides its huge size, is the variety of its landscapes. In fact, the country includes every major biome and almost every subtype of biome except the savanna. Tundra, taiga, rainforest, temperate forest, desert, freshwater, marine, and grasslands are all represented in the 48 states as well as Hawaii and Alaska. Almost no other country can claim the same. Fact number 31. The US is home to the sunniest place in the world. Since it gets more than 4,000 sunlight hours per year, Yuma, Arizona is the sunniest place on Earth. It has an average of 13 hours of sunlight in the summer and 11 hours per day during the winter. Fact number 30. Tampa, Florida is west of all of mainland South America. South America sits directly underneath North America. However, most of the continent is far to the east of most of North America. Sao Paulo, Brazil is a full 2 hours ahead of New York City. The continent is so far east that Tampa, Florida is west of the entire South American mainland. Only the Galapagos sit west of the city. Fact 29. The longest boardwalk in the world is in Atlantic City. Today, Atlantic City is mostly known for its casinos, but decades before the first casino was built, Atlantic City was most famous for its boardwalk. The structure is 5.5 miles long, and in addition to being the longest, it's also the oldest boardwalk in the world. The plan for the boardwalk was devised all the way back in 1870. Fact number 28. Louisiana is home to the longest bridge that continuously runs across water. Lake Pontchartrain Causeway is almost 24 miles long, about 38 kilometers, and sits on 9,500 concrete pilings. The New Orleans area bridge connects Metairie to Mandeville. It opened in 1956 to help commuters across Lake Pontchartrain without having to go all the way around to access the big city. Though residents appreciate the bridge, it's so long that drivers lose sight of land for an 8-mile stretch. Sometimes this panics people into a kind of freeze mode, resulting in police having to provide an escort to the other side. Fact number 27. The Delmarva Peninsula keeps trying to form a new state. Bordered by the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean, the Delmarva Peninsula is a 170-mile peninsula divided between Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. It was named using a combination of the three states' names and abbreviations. All three states initially fought to get part of the peninsula thanks to its coastline and fishing access. They now want to keep it thanks to the tourism its beaches and seaside recreation attract. However, the residents have a lot of local pride, especially those within Maryland. They've tried to form a separate state a few times, the last attempt made in 1998. Though the movement has been unsuccessful, lots of local businesses, like the Regional Power Company, still keep the Delmarva name. Fact 26. Maine is south of Paris. Since Paris and London seem to have comparable weather to New York City, and sometimes even milder temperatures, many Americans imagine those European cities exist at a similar latitude. But the fact is, the entire state of Maine is south of Paris, and London sits above most of the US except for Alaska. The only reason these European cities don't feel that far north is because they get warmed by the Gulf Stream. Speaking of London, fact number 25. A tiny part of the US still belongs to England. A small plot of land in the town of Ocracoke, on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, is indefinitely leased to England. It contains a cemetery where the bodies of 4 sailors that died aboard the HMS Bedfordshire in World War II are buried. These were the only bodies to wash ashore. 37 sailors died in total. The land was leased to England, so the men would technically be buried in their home country. You know who surprisingly doesn't own that much land in the US? Fact number 24. Only 2.3% of US land is for indigenous people. Native American reservations occupy around 56 million acres, or 226,000 square kilometers, which translates to 2.3% of the total area of the United States. Considering Native Americans once occupied all of the United States, that's quite the loss of land. Much of the land given to Native Americans is also less than ideal for farming and having drinkable water. You know who does get a lot of land, though? Fact number 23. Over 1/3 of all land in the contiguous US is for cows. What happens on the endless acres of empty-looking land in the US? Turns out, it's mostly cows munching on it. The biggest use of land in the contiguous US, excluding Alaska and Hawaii of course, is as pastures for cattle. A much smaller portion is used for horses, sheep, goats, and other animals. It all adds up to 654 million acres, or 2.6 million square kilometers, or 35% of the total land. If you add in cropland used to produce cow feed, which is an additional 124 million acres, you get 41% of all land use. Maybe that's why 9 American states have more cows than humans. These include Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Fact number 22. Atlanta is west of Detroit. People forget how much the eastern seaboard slopes inward as you go down the coast, to the point where Atlanta, the biggest metropolitan area of Georgia, is actually west of Detroit, Michigan. Fact number 21. Carter Lake, Iowa, suddenly found itself on the other side of the Missouri River. Carter Lake has the distinction of being the only Iowa town west of the Missouri River, and the reason is quite strange. A huge flood in 1877 changed the river's entire flow, pushing it east of the town. The residents of Carter Lake suddenly found themselves separated from their former neighbors and surrounded by Nebraska. Nebraska didn't try to claim the town, though. This isn't the only messed up border on our list, though. Fact number 20. The New Mexico border is crooked because a surveyor drew it incorrectly. New Mexico's eastern border may look like a straight line from a distance, but if you look closely, the state's border with Oklahoma in the north is around 2 miles further east than the state's border with Texas. And it's not because of some epic land or power struggle lost to history, it's because of a surveyor. The border was meant to follow the 103rd meridian. While the Oklahoma border aligns correctly, the southern border doesn't, thanks to a surveyor who measured part of it from north to south and the rest from south to north, throwing off his final calculations. New Mexico never appealed to get the land east of their border back. Fact 19. The Florida Everglades is the only place on Earth where crocodiles and alligators coexist. For most of us who still can't tell the difference, alligators are black with a U-shaped snout, and crocodiles are lighter gray or brown with a V-shaped snout. Either way, both of them are in the swamps of Florida, so it's best to avoid a swim in the area. Fact 18. The US is one of only 5 countries home to polar bears. Thanks to Alaska, the US is home to some majestic polar bears. Scientists estimate that between 4,000 and 7,000 polar bears roam the Great White North. When asked for a more exact count, they reportedly replied, "Thanks, but we'd rather estimate from exactly this far away." In case you're curious, the other 4 countries home to polar bears are Russia, Denmark, Norway, and Canada. Fact 17. Michigan has 2 disconnected peninsulas because of a compromise. Michigan applied for statehood in 1835 and tried to include land near Toledo, Ohio in its application. Ohio, wanting to access Lake Erie, shut that down pretty quickly, leaving Michiganders loud and annoyed. To appease them, Congress gave Michigan what's now known as the Upper Peninsula, attached to Wisconsin as a consolation prize. That's why the state remains divided into 2 separate, disconnected landmasses today. Fact number 16. Minnesota accidentally has part of Canada. If you glance at Minnesota's northern border, it looks like someone bumped into the mapmaker while drawing the state. The border suddenly shoots up into Canada and then back down shortly after. The mistake wasn't because of a shaky hand, but the 1783 Treaty of Paris and the US and Great Britain were working with wrong maps. The 2 countries wanted to draw a boundary at a northwest angle through the Lake of the Woods. But the lake wasn't drawn correctly, so the border ended up being a mistake, and to this day is still called the Northwest Angle. This is far from the only weird state border formed by political bickering and mistakes, so stay tuned. Fact number 15. The 100 largest landowning families own enough land to fill the state of Florida. The Emerson family operates Sierra Pacific Industries, a business that cuts usable lumber after forest fires and sells it to other lumber retailers, while John Malone, the largest private landowner in the US, mostly has cattle ranches. The Emersons own 2.4 million acres, or about 9,700 square kilometers, and John Malone owns 2.2 million, or about 8,900 square kilometers, an area about the size of Yellowstone National Park. Fact number 14. There is only one state capital without a McDonald's. If you're tired of seeing the Golden Arches everywhere and want a town that shies away from big corporate chains, maybe you should head to Montpelier, Vermont. It has the distinction of being the only state capital without a McDonald's. Fact number 13. The tallest forest in the world is Rockefeller Forest in California. California has the tallest forest in the world, the Rockefeller Forest. Scientists believe that the type of trees that grow here, coastal redwoods, combined with the mild Pacific coast climate, create these tall forests. Fact number 12. Kilauea is the most active volcano in the world. Not only does the US have a supervolcano, it also wins the world's most likely to erupt prize, a trophy wanted by absolutely no one. Mount Kilauea, on the Big Island of Hawaii, is the most active volcano in the world. It's been erupting non-stop for the past 200 years, with the last notable one being in June of 2024. Fact 11. 85% of Nevada is federal land. Though many western states contain large amounts of federal land, both due to challenging barely habitable geography and being forced to cede land to join the US as a state, Nevada contains by far the most. Today, the government owns 80 to 85% of Nevada, mostly through the Bureau of Land Management, though the Department of Defense also operates a fair amount of bases and facilities here. Fact number 10. Las Vegas is in Nevada because Arizona supported the Confederacy. When gold was discovered in that pointy region of the Arizona Territory in the 19th century, both Nevada and Arizona wanted it. At the time, Nevada's southern border was 60 miles or 96 kilometers above where Las Vegas sits today. Both states made their cases in front of Congress for who should get that land. Congress picked Nevada because they said the state was better prepared to manage the influx of gold miners. But it was also 1867, and after fighting a deadly, costly, and frankly exhausting civil war against the Confederacy, Congress was also just not in the mood to be nice to the secession-supporting state of Arizona. So, Nevada ended up with Las Vegas. Fact number 9. 39 counties in the US have a GDP of over $100 billion each. The GDP of LA County in 2022 was around $913 billion, a bigger output than all but 5 US states. That places its GDP between Switzerland and Poland. Other rich counties in the US include New York, Cook County, home to Chicago, and Harris County, home to Houston. Fact number 8. Kentucky Bend is separated from Kentucky. To separate Kentucky from Tennessee, a line was drawn to divide the states, but in one small area, it was drawn right through a Mississippi River bend and a small chunk of land that sticks out into the river from Tennessee, creating Kentucky Bend. residents have to cross through Tennessee to get to the rest of Kentucky. People used to be divided over which state they should belong to the point where a church called Compromise was built right on the state line, and residents would sit on the side they supported. The area only has 18 residents today, so it's not much of an issue anymore. Fact number 7. You have to drive through Canada to get to Point Roberts, USA. If you venture south from Vancouver into the little peninsula under it, you'll hit a border check and then Point Roberts. This tiny strip of 4.9 square miles ended up in US hands, even though it is on the Tawasin Peninsula. It can only be accessed by plane or boat without driving through Canada first. This division happened in the 1840s, when the border between Canada and the Oregon Territory almost brought the US and Great Britain to the brink of war again. Instead, they settled on a treaty, which divided the territory at the 49th parallel except for Vancouver Island, and the Tawasin Peninsula, which dips slightly below the parallel. Fact number 6. 94 places in the US are named after George Washington. These include a state, 31 separate counties, and the capital of Washington, D.C. Of all presidents, Washington has the most places named after him. The second most frequently found presidential name in the country's geography is Lincoln. Fact number 5. Ohio may have the biggest geode in the world. Though the Pulpi geode in Spain is also competing, the winner has yet to be decided. Ohio's Crystal Cave may be the world's biggest geode. When workers were digging for Heineman's Winery in Put-in Bay, Ohio back in 1897, they thought they had uncovered a cave. In reality, they had stumbled upon a massive geode, a rock lined with dazzling crystals on the inside. The celestite crystals in the cave run up to 3 feet wide and 18 inches long, and the geode itself can comfortably hold up to 30 people inside. Fact number 4. Almost all of Whittier, Alaska lives in one building. The 14-story Begich Towers in Whittier houses almost the entire population of 263 people. It also has a general store, a post office, a police station, church, and even a hospital, helpful for residents who don't want to go outside during the harsh Alaskan winters. Fact 3. Only 17 state capitals are also their state's largest cities. Out of 50 states, only 17 have capital cities that are also their state's largest urban centers. For example, California's capital is Sacramento, and New York's capital is Albany. Part of the reason is that many capitals were selected for alternate historical, geographical, or military reasons. Some early American politicians also believed that if a state's major city was already prosperous and powerful, the capital should be located elsewhere to divide political and economic power among different regions. Fact number 2, London Bridge is in Arizona. That's right, the original London Bridge is nowhere near the UK capital. You can now find it in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Originally built in the 1830s, the bridge did once sit over the Thames River in London. But in the 1960s, London Bridge did, quite literally, start falling down. The city realized it would be too costly to repair and had to be replaced. Industrialist Robert McCulloch bought the bridge and transported all 10,000 tons of it to Lake Havasu City to be rebuilt. And finally, fact number 1. The Grand Canyon isn't the deepest canyon in the US. That title goes to Hell's Canyon in eastern Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. Hell's Canyon dives down to around 8,000 feet at its deepest point, or about 2,400 meters, while the Grand Canyon only reaches 6,000 feet, or about 1,800 meters at its lowest. That means about 3 Burj Khalifas, the world's tallest building, could stack up inside of it. So why does the Grand Canyon get all the fame? Well, because it's longer, larger, and to many, more scenic than Hell's Canyon, thanks to its stunning rock formations and vistas. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack. The US is as diverse as it is huge, packed with surprising facts, strange demographics, and downright bizarre geography. So buckle up. We're about to take you on a wild ride through some of the quirkiest tidbits about America. Let's dive in, and by the end, you might just question everything you thought you knew. Starting off with number 50. Visiting every hotel in Vegas would take centuries. Las Vegas is home to an astonishing number of hotel rooms, so many that if you stayed in a different one every night, it would take you 412 and a half years to experience them all. With over 150,000 hotel rooms across Sin City, the scale of its hospitality industry is unmatched. The 4.2-mile Las Vegas Strip alone hosts 37 hotels, and even just those 85,000 rooms would take 233 years to stay in. So unless you've got a few centuries to spare, you might want to choose your hotel wisely, or just settle for a weekend getaway. Number 49. There's a community named Ding Dong. In Texas, there's a quirky little town called Ding Dong. And yes, its name does have a fun backstory. According to legend, Zulus and Bert Bell opened a store and hired an artist to make a sign. Instead of just painting their names, though, the artist drew two bells and labeled them Ding and Dong. And just like that, the town had its name. Fittingly, Ding Dong is in Bell County, making its Bell-inspired name even more appropriate. Though small, it always sparks curiosity and is a perfect example of the offbeat charm found in U.S. geography. America is full of oddly named places, and Ding Dong is one of the most memorable. It may not be widely known, but thanks to its unique name and fun origin story, it's carved out a small but unforgettable place in history. Number 48. Alaska has a longer shoreline than the other 49 states combined. When you think about the US, you might picture long stretches of shoreline along the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, but it's Alaska that really steals the show. According to NOAA, Alaska has a shoreline that stretches over 33,000 miles, which is more than the entire coastline of the other 49 states combined. This fact is even more surprising when you consider that Alaska is far removed from the continental US, but its rugged, icy shores along the Arctic and Pacific Oceans make up an enormous amount of coastal territory. Alaska's shoreline is so vast that it includes more than 33,000 islands, fjords, and bays, creating a landscape that's as wild and remote as it is beautiful. This incredible geographic feature contributes to Alaska's unique ecosystems and plays a huge role in the state's economy, especially with the fishing industry. Number 47. The US economy is larger than the next three economies combined. The United States stands tall as the global economic powerhouse, holding the title of the largest economy in the world. With a GDP of around $30 trillion, the US economy is larger than the next three biggest economies, China, Germany, and Japan, combined. This massive economic output is fueled by a diverse range of industries, including technology, finance, agriculture, and entertainment. The sheer size of the US economy has allowed it to be a global leader in trade, innovation, and investment. It's not just about numbers, it's about the scale of influence the US has on the world stage. Its economy is a driving force behind global markets, and despite challenges like trade wars and economic recessions, it remains resilient and innovative, continuing to lead in areas such as tech and consumer spending. Number 46. The US is home to the world's largest ball of twine. Kansas, of all places, is home to one of the weirdest, most impressive roadside attractions in the world. The world's largest ball of twine. This colossal ball weighs approximately 20,000 pounds and has a circumference of over 40 feet. While it might not sound like much at first, the ball of twine is a testament to the dedication of the local community. The ball started small, but over the years, people from around the world have contributed to it, adding layers of twine to make it the giant mass it is today. It's now housed in a gazebo for protection and attracts thousands of visitors who marvel at this oddball piece of Americana. Number 45. Hawaii is the only state that grows coffee on a large scale. Coffee lovers will find a special place in their hearts for Hawaii as the only state in the US that grows coffee commercially on a large scale. Specifically, there's coffee grown on the slopes of its volcanoes, where the unique climate and volcanic soil provide the perfect conditions for coffee cultivation. The most famous coffee produced here is Kona coffee, a rich, smooth coffee that has become synonymous with the island's culture. Kona coffee is celebrated worldwide for its quality and has become an essential part of Hawaii's agricultural identity. Hawaii's volcanic terrain adds a unique twist to the coffee growing process, making it stand out from other coffee-producing regions. Number 44. California is bigger than the entire United Kingdom. California, the Golden State, is so large that it could easily swallow the entire United Kingdom and still have some room left. With a population of over 39 million, California is the most populous state in the US, and its landmass is vast, measuring over 164,000 square miles. In comparison, the UK is a tiny 94,000 square miles. The size and diversity of California make it a unique microcosm of the US, encompassing everything from sprawling deserts to towering mountains to lush coastlines. It has a booming economy that ranks among the largest in the world, driven by industries such as tech, entertainment, and agriculture. If California were its own country, it would rank as one of the largest economies globally, and its cultural impact is undeniable, influencing everything from technology to film and music. Number 43. The US has more museums than any other country. The United States is a museum lover's dream. With a staggering 35,000 museums scattered across the country, the US boasts more museums than any other country in the world. From art museums like the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York to quirky museums such as the International Cryptozoology Museum in Maine, there's something here for everyone. These museums cover virtually every subject you can imagine, from history and science to pop culture and obscure topics like the history of bananas. The sheer number of museums in the US reflects the country's cultural diversity and commitment to preserving its history, making it an ideal place for visitors to explore and learn about a wide variety of topics. Fact number 42. All roads from Stamford, Connecticut lead to New York. From Stamford, Connecticut, no matter which way you travel, all roads and waters lead to New York State. Drive north in a straight line, you'll cross into New York State. Head south, you'll hit New York waters in the Long Island Sound. Go west, you're in New York almost immediately. And if you somehow manage to drive east, well, you'd better have an amphibious vehicle, because after a short trip through the Long Island Sound, you'll land in New York once again. It's one of those geographic oddities that makes Stamford unique, effectively surrounding the city with New York on all sides. Number 41. Mount Rushmore took 14 years to complete. Mount Rushmore, one of the most iconic national monuments in the US, took a painstaking 14 years to complete. Sculpted into the granite face of the Black Hills in South Dakota, the monument features the faces of 4 US presidents: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. The Mount Rushmore project began in 1927 and faced countless challenges, from harsh weather to the difficulty of carving into solid granite. Despite these obstacles, sculptor Gutzon Borglum and his team pushed forward. However, due to lack of funding, construction was halted in 1941, leaving the monument unfinished. Still, Mount Rushmore has become a symbol of US history and ideals, attracting millions of visitors each year. Number 40. The US is the world's largest consumer of cheese. Americans love their cheese, and the numbers prove it. In 2024, the US consumed over 6,800 tons of cheese, making it the world's largest consumer of this dairy product. Cheese is a staple in American cuisine, from the classic grilled cheese sandwich to pizza, cheeseburgers, and countless other dishes. The popularity of cheese has even led to entire festivals dedicated to this beloved food, like the Great Wisconsin Cheese Festival. Number 39. There's a city that can't be reached by road. Utqiagvik, formerly known as Barrow, is a remote city in Alaska where no roads connect it to the outside world. Residents rely on air travel, snowmobiles in winter, and boats in the summer to access the town. This isolated city, home to more than 4,500 people, faces unique challenges but thrives in this harsh setting. Locals have adapted to extreme cold and long winters with creative solutions like snowmobiles for everyday travel. With no road network to the outside world, Utqiagvik serves as a reminder of human adaptation in one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Fact number 38. The United States boasts over 12,000 miles of coastline, which stretches from the icy shores of Alaska to the sunny beaches of Florida. This coastline encompasses a variety of landscapes, from rugged cliffs to sandy beaches, and includes the shores of the Pacific, Atlantic, and the Gulf of Mexico. This vast coastline is not just beautiful, it's vital to the nation's economy, supporting industries like tourism, fishing, and shipping. The U.S. coastlines also play a crucial role in wildlife preservation, hosting diverse ecosystems and serving as habitats for numerous species. The country's coastlines are home to some of the most popular vacation destinations and national parks, offering endless opportunities for outdoor activities. Number 37. Reno is further west than Los Angeles. California is one of the westernmost states in the U.S., dominating the West Coast with its long stretch of shoreline. Meanwhile, Reno, Nevada sits nearly 300 miles inland, far from the Pacific Ocean. But Reno is actually farther west than Los Angeles. Despite LA's iconic coastal location, Reno sits at approximately 119.8 degrees west longitude, while LA is around 118.2 degrees west. That means Reno is roughly 86 miles farther west than the City of Angels. It's one of those weird geographic quirks that doesn't seem possible until you check the map. Number 36. Some U.S. states have their own official languages. While English is the primary language spoken in the U.S., several states recognize other languages as official. For example, Hawaiian is co-official with English in Hawaii, reflecting the state's cultural heritage and native language. Similarly, Alaska recognizes various indigenous languages, such as Inupiaq and Yupik, as official, celebrating the diversity of its indigenous communities. These unique state language policies serve to preserve local traditions and cultures, showing that U.S. linguistic diversity goes beyond English and helps maintain the heritage of various communities across the country. Fact number 35. The U.S. has multiple states with no sales tax. Delaware is famous for having no statewide sales tax, making it a hotspot for shoppers looking to save, especially on big-ticket items. But it's not alone. Alaska, Montana, New Hampshire, and Oregon also forego statewide sales tax, though with some caveats. Alaska has no state sales tax, but allows local governments to impose their own, leading to varying rates. Montana operates similarly, permitting tourist-heavy areas to tax certain goods and services. New Hampshire maintains its tax-free reputation, though items like alcohol and tobacco are still taxed. Oregon has no sales tax at all, instead relying on higher income and property taxes for revenue. These states provide unique tax-free shopping opportunities, making them attractive not only for consumers, but also for businesses looking to operate in low-tax environments. Number 34. Anchorage, the global gateway. Get on a plane in Anchorage, Alaska, and within 10 hours, you could be anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. Anchorage is the only city in the world that can claim this, even when compared to the Southern Hemisphere equivalent. So what makes Anchorage so special? Well, first, it's home to a major international airport, processing massive amounts of cargo and passenger flights from East Asia to the US. But that's not the only advantage. Anchorage also happens to be the closest major international airport to either pole. Its proximity to the North Pole means flights can take direct, over-the-pole routes, dramatically cutting travel time to faraway destinations. For example, if you're flying from New York City to Tokyo or Beijing, you're looking at a grueling 13 to 14-hour journey, because a huge chunk of that time is spent just getting up to the pole. But when you start in Anchorage, you're already most of the way there. A direct flight from Anchorage to Frankfurt, Germany is no longer than a flight from Boston to Los Angeles. Number 33. One U.S. territory drives on the left. The U.S. Virgin Islands is the only place in the U.S. where people drive on the left, a rule that dates back to 1970 when the U.S. purchased the islands from Denmark. At the time, Denmark drove on the left, so to keep the locals happy and avoid conflict, the U.S. kept the traffic laws unchanged. Denmark switched to the right in 1967, along with much of Europe, but the U.S. Virgin Islands never followed suit. To this day, drivers in the US VI stick to the left, and for what it's worth, their neighbors in the British Virgin Islands do so too. But unlike other left-side driving countries, most cars in the US VI are imported from the mainland US, meaning the steering wheel is still on the left, making for a unique and sometimes confusing driving experience. Number 32. You can walk across the US in 7 months. Walking across the United States is a monumental challenge, but it's possible. The typical route stretches over 3,000 miles from coast to coast, and it can take about 7 months to complete. The most popular route is the Trans-America Trail, which passes through various terrains like mountains, plains, and forests. Along the way, walkers will encounter challenges like changing weather conditions and long distances between stops. But the experience is often life-changing. For those with the right mindset and fitness, walking across the US is an opportunity to connect with the land in a way few other journeys offer. Fact number 31. The Liberty Bell isn't American. The Liberty Bell is one of the most famous symbols of American independence and a must-see when visiting Philadelphia, often called the birthplace of America. This is where the Founding Fathers came together to sign both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. On July 8, 1776, the Liberty Bell was one of several bells rung as the Declaration of Independence was read aloud to the public for the first time. But despite being a symbol of freedom from Britain, the bell itself was actually made in London, forged in 1751 at the Whitechapel Foundry, the same place that produced Big Ben. Number 30. The President's Private Zip Code. The United States has over 42,000 zip codes, but one remains a secret: the President's personal zip code. While the official White House zip code is 20500, the U.S. Postal Service assigns each new president a private zip code to handle their vast amount of correspondence securely. This system ensures that only essential mail reaches the head of state, filtering out unnecessary letters, packages, and potential security threats. The secret zip code changes with each administration, meaning no two presidents share the same one. Even with this added layer of security, the 20500 zip code still functions for public mail, and specialized versions, like 20500-0001 for the First Lady, exist for different White House offices. So, while most Americans can freely look up zip codes, the president's personal one remains classified, ensuring that their mail remains as secure as their communications. Number 29. There's an Island of the Dead in the US. If you think an Island of the Dead only exists in horror movies, think again. The US has its own spooky, real-life version, Hart Island, just off the coast of New York City. Once a mass burial ground, over 1 million graves were dug here, many by prisoners from nearby Rikers Island, adding to its eerie history. With centuries-old burial sites, decaying structures, and an abandoned atmosphere, Hart Island has become a place of ghost stories and mystery. Though it's mostly uninhabited today, it remains a forgotten and haunting chapter of America's past. Number 28. The largest ball of rubber bands is in the US. The claim about the largest ball of rubber bands being in Akron, Ohio is incorrect. The actual record for the largest rubber band ball goes to Joel Wall of Lauderhill, Florida. His creation, named Megaton, weighs an astonishing 9,000 pounds and was officially recognized by Guinness World Records on November 13, 2008. While there may be a notable rubber band ball in Akron, Ohio, it isn't the largest in the world. Joel Wall's Megaton remains the reigning champion and a unique roadside attraction in Florida. Number 27. Texas is bigger than France. When we say Texas is big, we mean it. The Lone Star State is larger than the entire country of France, with over 26,000 square miles of extra space to spare. To put that into perspective, you could fit France inside Texas with room left over. Texas is big enough to be its own country if it wanted, which is why Texans are so proud of their state's size. With vast deserts, lush forests, and bustling cities, Texas is as diverse in geography as it is in its culture. Fact number 26. The US has a museum of bad art. In Massachusetts, there's a museum that proves not all art needs to be highbrow to be worth appreciating. The Museum of Bad Art is dedicated entirely to quote-unquote bad art. But don't let the name fool you, it's not a joke. The museum has a real collection of artwork that is unintentionally terrible. From bizarre portraits to distorted sculptures, the museum showcases what you might call artistic missteps that are entertaining in their own right. Sometimes the beauty of art is in its imperfections, and this museum takes that to a whole new level. Halfway through, and we're hitting you with number 25. The U.S. has uninhabited territories. While all U.S. states have some level of human presence, the United States does own several uninhabited territories. For example, Baker Island and Howland Island are two small atolls in the Pacific Ocean that are uninhabited and primarily used for scientific research and wildlife preservation. Baker Island has been a U.S. territory since 1857, but access is restricted mainly to educators and scientists. Howland Island was briefly colonized in the 1930s, but has remained uninhabited since then. These territories highlight the diverse nature of U.S. land ownership, extending beyond the continental borders to include remote islands that are rich in wildlife but devoid of permanent human residence. Number 24. The U.S. is home to the largest cave system. Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky is home to the longest cave system in the world. Stretching over 400 miles, Mammoth Cave offers endless underground adventures. The cave system is so vast that researchers are still discovering new tunnels and chambers. Fact number 23. The U.S. has more public libraries than it has McDonald's. There are around 17,000 public libraries across the country, far more than the 13,000 McDonald's locations. While the Golden Arches may seem like they're everywhere, libraries outnumber them, offering way more than just books. Whether you're looking for a bestseller, a quiet study spot, or a place to learn something new, your local library has you covered. No fries required. Next up, number 22. The U.S. states are so vast, they cover 6 time zones. The United States is so vast that it spans 6 time zones: Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific, Alaska, and Hawaii Aleutian. This incredible geographic breadth means that when it's 9 a.m. in New York City, it's still only 4 a.m. in Honolulu, Hawaii. The diversity across these time zones is equally impressive, ranging from the bustling cities of the East Coast to the serene beaches of Hawaii and the rugged wilderness of Alaska. Number 21. Wyoming has over 30 named islands despite being completely landlocked. Wyoming might be nowhere near an ocean and far from the Great Lakes, but that hasn't stopped it from having over 30 named islands. Though it's the 6th largest state without a coastline, Wyoming still has 713 square miles of water, making up 0.72% of its total area. That includes lakes, rivers, and reservoirs, and some of those contain islands. Yes, actual islands. Most of Wyoming's named islands can be found in Jackson Lake and Yellowstone Lake, though a few others are scattered across Lay Lake and various other rivers. The exact count varies. Some sources say 31, 32, or even 35. But among them are Dot Island, Bush Island, Oxbow Bend, Boulder Island, and Elk Island. So while Wyoming may be landlocked, it still has its own little pieces of island life, just without the ocean breeze. Number 20. The U.S. is home to the world's largest McDonald's. If you're ever in Orlando, Florida, be sure to stop by the world's largest McDonald's. This isn't just any McDonald's, it's more like an amusement park for fast food lovers. Along with your typical Big Mac and fries, this McDonald's features an arcade, a play area for kids, and even a variety of unique menu items that you won't find at your usual McDonald's. It's the kind of place where you can get your fast food fix and have a little fun at the same time. Number 19. The U.S. had a whiskey rebellion. In the 1790s, America was in a spirited uproar. Literally, farmers protested a whiskey tax that they thought was unfair, and what followed was the Whiskey Rebellion. People rioted in the streets and fought against the government's right to tax alcohol, all in the name of good whiskey. It was one of the first major challenges to federal authority in the young country, and it led to President George Washington sending in the army to restore order. The rebellion may have been short-lived, but it made a lasting impact on American politics. Number 18. The U.S. has a firefall in Yosemite. Yosemite National Park in California puts on a show unlike anything else. It's called the firefall phenomenon, where a waterfall appears to be on fire as the setting sun hits it just right. The water reflects the warm colors of the sky, making it seem as though flames are pouring down the rocks. The firefall is a magical sight that draws thousands of visitors to the park every year, hoping to witness this natural wonder. Number 17. New York City was originally New Amsterdam. Before it was known as New York City, the Big Apple was originally settled by the Dutch and called New Amsterdam. The city was founded as a trading post by the Dutch West India Company in 1624, and its name reflected its Dutch roots. However, in 1664, the British took control of the city, renaming it New York in honor of the Duke of York. The city's Dutch influence can still be seen in its architecture and in the names of various places around the city today. Fact number 16. The concrete in the Hoover Dam could stretch around the world. The Hoover Dam was the largest engineering project of its time, towering 726 feet high and providing much-needed jobs for 21,000 workers during the Great Depression. In fact, the workforce was so massive that they had to build Boulder City, Nevada, just to house them. The scale of the project was staggering. So much concrete was used that it could pave a 2-lane highway from Seattle to Miami or create a 4-foot-wide path around the entire equator. Number 15. A fire has been burning in Pennsylvania since 1962. The Centralia mine fire is the worst mine fire in U.S. history, and it's been burning nonstop since May of 1962 beneath what's now a ghost town. It all started when the town tried to burn trash in a municipal waste dump, but the flames spread to underground coal deposits. From there, the fire crept into abandoned mine tunnels, where it's been raging ever since, unstoppable and too dangerous to put out. By 1982, as toxic gas leaked from the ground and sinkholes swallowed streets, most of the 1,500 residents packed up and left voluntarily. The government took over, demolishing nearly everything, leaving behind cracked roads, rising steam, and an eerie silence. As of 2023, Centralia was still home to just 5 people. 5 houses, 3 families, 1 municipal building, and a single business remain. The last holdouts in a town the fire refuses to let go of. Number 14. Alaska is closer to Russia than the continental US. Geographically speaking, Alaska is closer to Russia than it is to the continental United States. The Bering Strait, which separates Alaska from Russia, is 53 miles long at its narrowest point. It's fascinating to think that Alaska, which is part of the US, shares more in common with Russia in terms of proximity than it does with the lower 48 states. Number 13. The book lover's dream. The Library of Congress, the largest library in the world, houses over 167 million items, including over 39 million books and print materials. Its collection spans a mind-blowing 838 miles of bookshelves, long enough to stretch from Los Angeles to El Paso, Texas. As a global hub of knowledge and history, the Library of Congress preserves everything from rare manuscripts to historical recordings, making it one of the most valuable cultural institutions on Earth. Number 12. The US has a rainforest in Alaska. While most people associate rainforests with tropical regions, the United States is home to the Tongass National Forest in Alaska, the largest temperate rainforest in the world. Spanning nearly 16.7 million acres, this lush forest is filled with towering Sitka spruce and western hemlock trees, as well as diverse wildlife like bald eagles, black bears, and salmon. The Tongass is a unique treasure, offering a completely different kind of rainforest experience compared to its tropical counterparts. It's a reminder of the incredible ecological diversity found within the US. Number 11. California's Sequoia National Park is home to some of the largest trees on Earth, including General Sherman, which stands at 275 feet tall and is believed to be around 2,200 years old. These ancient trees are some of the oldest living organisms on the planet, and their sheer size is breathtaking. Visiting the park and standing next to these giants is an experience unlike any other. Number 10. The US is home to a city named Truth or Consequences. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, is a city with a rather unusual name. Originally called Hot Springs, the town changed its name in 1950 after the popular radio show Truth or Consequences. The name change was part of a publicity stunt, and the town's new moniker has certainly captured the public's imagination. Fact number 9. There are over 19,000 municipalities in the United States, which means there's no shortage of cities, towns, and villages to choose from. Whether you're looking for a bustling metropolis, a quaint little town, or something in between, you'll have a ton of options to explore. Fact number 8. The United States is home to the largest economy in the world, with a nominal GDP exceeding $30 trillion as of 2025. This economic powerhouse is characterized by a diverse range of industries, including technology, finance, healthcare, and agriculture. The US dollar serves as the world's primary reserve currency, reflecting the country's significant influence on global trade and finance. Its robust economy not only drives innovation and entrepreneurship, but also attracts talent and investment from around the globe, making it a central player in the international marketplace. Fact number 7. Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota is the only national park in the U.S. named after a president. The park commemorates Roosevelt's conservation efforts and his commitment to preserving America's natural beauty. It's a fitting tribute to a president who loved the outdoors and played such a crucial role in creating national parks across the country. Fact number 6. The United States is home to Yellowstone National Park, the world's first national park, established in 1872. Spanning over 2.2 million acres across Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho, Yellowstone is renowned for its geothermal wonders like Old Faithful and its diverse wildlife, including bison, bears, and wolves. Fact number 5. Monowi, Nebraska, is a small town with a population of just 1 person. Technically classified as a village, Monowi's lone resident, Elsie Eiler, serves as the town's mayor, librarian, and even the bartender. Fact number 4. An earthquake caused the Mississippi to flow backwards. The New Madrid earthquakes of 1811 and 1812 were some of the strongest ever recorded in the U.S., with magnitudes estimated between 7.2 and 8.2. The biggest, on February 7, 1812, shook the ground so violently that it caused landslides, massive cracks, and even made the Mississippi River flow backward for a short time. Unlike most major quakes which hit the West Coast, these struck in the central U.S., rocking Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Kentucky. The shaking was so intense that people in New York City and Washington, D.C. felt it. The New Madrid seismic zone is still active today, and while nothing has come close to the 1811-1812 quakes, experts warn that another big one isn't out of the question. Number 3. The U.S. is home to the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. Standing at just under 1,800 feet tall, the One World Trade Center in New York City is the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. It's an architectural marvel, a symbol of resilience and recovery after the events of September 11, 2001. Visitors can head to the observation deck to take in breathtaking views of the city, making it an iconic landmark in the U.S. Number 2. The longest zipline in the United States is the Catamount Zip at Catamount Mountain Resort in Hillsdale, New York. This zipline spans over 5,500 feet and reaches speeds of up to 55 miles an hour. The zipline experience includes a chairlift ride and features a unique braking system that allows riders to control their speed while enjoying breathtaking views of the Hudson Valley and the Berkshire Mountains. And finally, fact number 1. The U.S. has a road that's 3,000 miles long. Highway 20, the longest road in the U.S., stretches for over 3,000 miles in total. It runs from Boston, Massachusetts, all the way to the West Coast in Oregon. This vast highway offers travelers an epic road trip experience, passing through different climates, cities, and landscapes along the way. It's one of the ultimate American journeys for those ready for an unforgettable adventure. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MapPack. The US is an enormous place, and today we're going to break it down by bringing you one amazing fact about each state. Starting off with Alabama. Though space travel is more often associated with Cape Canaveral, Florida, or the Space Center in Houston, the real rocket capital of the country is Huntsville, Alabama. The rocket that put man on the moon for the first time was developed and tested at the Marshall Space Flight Center, or MSFC. Today, you can visit the U.S. Space and Rocket Center to get a glimpse into the city's space travel history. Alaska. Alaska has more glaciers than the entire rest of the inhabited world. Over 100,000 of them cover the U.S.'s northernmost state, and 25% of them, covering around 4.6 million acres, are found within Alaska's many national parks. Since glaciers require lots of snowfall and cool summers to form, Alaska provides perfect conditions. Some parts of the state, like Harding Icefield, receive around 60 feet or 19 meters of snow per year. The biggest is the Malaspina Glacier, which measures 850 square miles or 2,200 square kilometers and spans 60 miles or 97 kilometers across. Arizona. Arizona is the state with the most sky islands. These aren't some futuristic floating isles. A sky island is an isolated mountain area that has such steep elevation changes from the valleys below it. That means it creates a totally different ecosystem on the mountain itself. These areas are found in northwestern Mexico, Arizona, and New Mexico, but Arizona has over 40 sky islands within its borders, with more plant diversity than any other area in the country. Some mountains are more than 6,000 feet or 1,800 meters above the desert floor, a place that's generally inhospitable to most plants and animals. This makes the mountains themselves a much better refuge for all kinds of species. Arkansas. The U.S.'s only active diamond mine is located in Arkansas. And if you'd like, you can even go searching for diamonds there yourself. 150,000 to 170,000 people visit the Crater of Diamonds State Park every year, hoping to find a diamond and pay off a trip to the supermarket. Visitors find more than 600 diamonds every year. The biggest diamond ever found in the U.S. was discovered at the Crater of Diamonds. Nicknamed Uncle Sam, it was a massive 40.2 carat gem unearthed back in 1924. Imagine the kind of ring that would make. California. It's a testament to the state's extreme geographic diversity that California has both the highest and lowest points in the continental U.S. within its borders. Better yet, they're only 85 miles or 137 kilometers apart, so you could theoretically visit both in one day. Badwater Basin, the lowest point of scorching hot Death Valley, is 282 feet or 86 meters below sea level. While just a couple of hours drive southeast of it, you'll find Mount Whitney, the tallest mountain in the contiguous United States, towering up to 14,500 feet or 4,400 meters above sea level. Colorado. Colorado is not, as the map would suggest, a square. In fact, this angular-looking state actually has 697 sides. We looked it up, and that makes it a hexahectaenneaconticai heptagon. Bet you didn't learn that one in elementary school. That's because even though Colorado's borders are technically drawn across the 102nd and 109th meridians, as well as the 41st and 37th parallels, they were drawn in the late 1800s with the incredibly basic tools surveyors used at the time. Not to mention, drawing borders on the meridians on the curved, slightly squashed Earth's surface doesn't always mean they come out even. Connecticut. One of the largest dinosaur track sites in the world is in Connecticut. The Dinosaur State Park contains a 200-million-year-old fossil trackway, as well as a museum explaining the finds. In fact, the first dinosaur tracks ever found in the country were discovered in 1802 in the Connecticut River Valley, even though the actual site was just across the border in South Hadley, Massachusetts. But from that day on, the valley has attracted paleontologists from all over the country in search of tracks much like the 750 footprints from the Jurassic period left in Dinosaur State Park. Delaware. Delaware has more corporate entities than people. With a population of 1.05 million people, the state has over 2 million registered business entities. So why is everyone rushing to register in Delaware? The state has a very business-friendly legal framework. There's no minimum bank account requirement for a company to operate. Also, business owners don't need to list their names when filing their initial papers to start a business, keeping the company private and names off the public record. And perhaps most importantly of all, there's no state income tax on businesses formed in Delaware that don't operate in Delaware. The business environment is so favorable that 67.8% of Fortune 500 companies are based in Delaware. And in 2022, 79% of all companies with an IPO are technically Delaware corporations. Florida. Though Florida may be better known for its beautiful beaches, the state is also famous for another water-related fact. Florida has the most freshwater springs not only in the country, but in the entire world. Geologists have identified over 600 to 1,000 springs, depending on the source, and 33 of them are relatively huge, with 65 million gallons or 246 million liters per day flowing through them. So why does Florida have so many? Underneath the state are layers of limestone and dolomite, which are easily penetrated and dissolved by rainwater, creating natural openings. When groundwater flows close to the surface, especially under pressure, it comes up through those same openings. Georgia. The biggest swamp in the country isn't the Florida Everglades. It's in southern Georgia. The Okefenokee, a Creek Indian name that means land of the trembling earth, is actually the largest swamp in North America, measuring 684 square miles, or just under 1,800 square kilometers. That means the entire city of Los Angeles could fit inside of it. This protected area is one of the largest intact freshwater areas in the world and is home to animals from amphibians to alligators and black bears. It's nicknamed Trembling Earth because there's a lot of peat in the soil, making it very difficult to walk on since it shifts underneath your feet. Hawaii. Hawaii is the longest island chain in the world, made up of 132 islands, though only 7 are inhabited. You probably already know that it's the only US state that's also an archipelago, but since most people only know the inhabited Hawaiian islands, Niihau, Lanai, Molokai, Kauai, Oahu, Maui, and Big Island, they don't know how far this chain actually stretches. From the southernmost Big Island to the northernmost Kuri Atoll, the chain stretches 1,500 miles or 2,400 kilometers across the Pacific Ocean. Idaho. Though the Grand Canyon may be the most famous gorge in the country, it's not the deepest. That title goes to the appropriately named Hell's Canyon in Idaho. The Snake River carved out the continent's deepest river gorge over millions of years, causing it to dip 8,000 feet or 2,400 meters below Idaho's Seven Devils Mountains and over 1 mile beneath Oregon's West Rim. The canyon is located near the Oregon-Washington-Idaho border. There are no roads across Hell's Canyon. If you want to get across it, you have to hike. According to Backpacker Magazine, the Oregon Rim to River Loop takes 4 to 6 days to cover 56 miles, 90 kilometers, and 6,000 feet or 1,800 meters of elevation gain and loss. Happy walking. Illinois. On November 28, 1895, James Frank Duryea made history by winning the United States' first ever automobile race. 6 vehicles, 4 cars and 2 motorcycles completed a 54-mile or 87-kilometer loop from Chicago to Evanston and back. And it was chaos. Drivers battled snowstorms, deep snowdrifts, muddy roads, and freezing 38-degree Fahrenheit or 4-degree centigrade temperatures. But Duryea pushed through, finishing in 10 hours and 23 minutes at an average speed of just 7 miles an hour. His reward was a gold medal and a share of the $5,000 prize pool, roughly $189,000 in today's money. Indiana. Why is Indiana nicknamed the Crossroads of America? Besides its relatively central location, it may be because it has more miles of interstate per square mile than any other state. Indianapolis specifically is a major junction for a lot of interstates that connect major cities. I-65, I-69, I-70, and I-74 all run through the state capital. Some historians say that the Crossroads nickname comes from Highways 40 and 41. They were the ones that originally opened up the West to settlement and were made part of the original highway system in 1926. Iowa. Iowa is the only state that has its eastern and western borders formed by rivers, rather than randomly drawn on a map, as is the case with many other U.S. states. The Mississippi River runs down Iowa's east side, while the Missouri River runs down the west. The rivers have also been very important to Iowa's development as a state. Not only did they offer avenues for transportation and settlement, but they also helped develop Iowa's agriculture via irrigation. And farming is a big deal in Iowa, as the state supplies 10% of the entire U.S. food supply. Kansas. Locals may joke about how the state is as flat as a pancake, but scientists decided to test the elevation of Kansas against a standard IHOP pancake. Using a digital model, they found that Kansas is actually flatter than the breakfast favorite. Kentucky. The only town constructed entirely within a meteor crater is in Kentucky. If you drive to the over 10,000-person town of Middlesboro, Kentucky, you might not immediately notice you've descended into a crater, as the town and its surrounding vegetation has grown since then. But it does in fact sit in a 3.6-mile or nearly 6-kilometer wide impact site, though even the town's founders didn't initially know that when they built it in 1810. The crater site was discovered much later in 1966. However, the meteor may be the reason the town exists in the first place. Middlesboro was initially established as a coal and iron mining community. Scientists believe the impact from the crater is what brought coal and iron so close to the surface of the land to begin with. Louisiana. The world's longest bridge over water is Lake Pontchartrain Causeway, just outside of New Orleans. The bridge is 24 miles or 39 kilometers long. In some parts, it's so far over the water that for a good 8 miles or 13 kilometers, you can't actually see land in any direction. This sometimes causes a problem for drivers. After driving for several minutes suspended over water without being able to see land, some people become anxious to the point where they can't continue crossing. More than once, police have had to escort drivers who have stopped in the middle of the bridge, particularly non-locals, to the other side. Maine. Maine has a longer coastline than California. You can double-check your map all you want. It's true. So how is that possible, considering Maine is only around 35,000 square miles in area, and California is almost 164,000 square miles, and both states only have one side on the coast? Well, the answer lies in Maine's very craggy shores. All those tiny bays and inlets add a lot more distance to the specific coastline versus the general state coastline. Maine also has 3,166 offshore islands that contribute to its coastline measurements. So, when all is said and done, Maine has close to 3,500 miles or 5,600 kilometers of tidal shoreline, while California only has around 3,400 miles or 5,400 kilometers. Maryland. Though it may not seem like it at first glance, according to the Maryland Geological Survey, Maryland is the only state without a natural lake. Locals may wonder how that's possible, given the state has over 100 lakes within its borders, including 11.5-mile or 18.5-kilometer long Deep Creek Lake. At the end of the last ice age, when glaciers were retreating north all across the continent, they mostly missed Maryland. And most natural lakes today are the byproduct of glacial scouring across the continent. So today, every lake in Maryland is man-made, created via dams or reservoirs. Massachusetts. Massachusetts may be home to one of the longest-running and silliest border disputes of all time, which created what locals refer to as the Southwick Jog. If you look at the state's southern border, there's a small notch where Massachusetts juts into its otherwise straight boundary with Connecticut. The problem started way back in 1642. The surveyors establishing the boundary between the colonies put the western end too far south. Both colonies hired surveyors to correct this oversight, but the surveyors drew borders that made the colonies that hired them bigger. This went on for 60 years. Then, in 1713, residents of a few southern Massachusetts towns joined Connecticut to avoid high Massachusetts taxes, starting a dispute that went on for another 91 years. In 1804, when everyone was just too bored to tears to deal with it anymore, the two states agreed to split up the 2.5 square miles of land they were arguing about for the last 2 centuries, giving a little more to Massachusetts to make up for the loss of its former towns. Michigan. Michigan is the only state to have 2 peninsulas. The Upper and Lower Peninsulas are entirely separated by other states and the Great Lakes. But did you know that the Upper Peninsula has tried to secede from Michigan multiple times? Michigan's Lower Peninsula is home to its biggest cities, including Detroit, most of its industry, and 97% of the state's 10 million population. This has made the Upper Peninsula, a mineral-rich area known for its scenic beauty, but also complete lack of industry and people, feel neglected at times. There have been several attempts at secession, including one of the most recent ones in 1962. The Upper Peninsula Independence Association was formed to establish the Upper Peninsula as a new state, Superior. Unfortunately, the group only got 20,000 petition signatures for a referendum, well short of what it needed. Minnesota. The only part of the contiguous U.S. that extends north of the 49th parallel, determined to be the northernmost border with Canada, is the northwest angle of Minnesota. Established because of a map-making error back during the Treaty of Paris in 1783, the border was supposed to cut through the Lake of the Woods at the 49th parallel, but the map of the lake used at the time was mostly a guess. In any case, it's created a weird situation where even though the northwest angle is part of the US, it's technically accessible only via Canada. Unless you want to cross the lake that separates it from the rest of Minnesota. Canadians who come down to fish have to stop at a shed near the border called Jim's Corner and present their passport via videophone to US immigration. It's such a forgotten corner that no one could be bothered to put a real-life border patrolman there. Mississippi. The Gulf Coast of Mississippi is home to the longest man-made beach in the world, running 26 miles or 42 kilometers from Biloxi to Henderson Point on the southern coast of the state. It was originally built for the purpose of controlling erosion, thus protecting the communities that lay further inland. Thanks to Public Law 727 passed in 1946, plenty of seawalls, really important structures along the hurricane-prone Gulf, were built along the Mississippi coast. The artificial beach was put in place to protect the seawalls themselves. Workers raised the coast to increase the area's protection from storms. Missouri. Did you know Missouri is known as the Cave State? Though you may have heard the more common nickname Show Me State instead, apparently what Missouri wants to show you is between 6,400 and 7,500 known caves within its borders. Caves easily form in Missouri because a lot of the state lies on limestone or dolomite. The water seeping through forms big openings over time, eventually developing small caves and even entire cave systems. Montana. Montana is home to the Triple Divide Peak in Glacier National Park, a strange place where rainfall that falls on the mountain can end up in any one of 3 different oceans, or as smarter people call it, the hydrological apex of the North American continent. That's because rain here can end up in 3 different rivers via the creeks that run down the mountain, including the Pacific Creek, Atlantic Creek, and the Hudson Bay Creek. These eventually join the Columbia River that runs to the Pacific Ocean, the Mississippi River that goes to the Gulf of America, internationally known as the Gulf of Mexico, and the Hudson Bay, which connects to the Arctic Ocean. Nebraska. Unlike Kansas, Nebraska isn't as flat as you might think. In fact, it's home to the biggest spread of sand dunes in North America, known as sand hills. These dunes cover between 19,000 and 20,000 square miles, or around 50,000 square kilometers in the western part of Nebraska, or roughly 1/4 of the state. The coolest part is what formed the dunes. When glaciers were retreating north between 1.8 million to 10,000 years ago, they eroded the Rocky Mountains and dragged down sediment from them to the ground. Over time, the sediment deposits got covered by grasslands, forming the hills you see in Nebraska today. Nevada. Nevada isn't just dry desert. It has more mountain ranges than any other state, with 314 found within its borders. In fact, 35 mountains in Nevada reach up to over 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters in elevation, making the state much more varied in landscape than most people imagine. However, you still got the dry part of Nevada right. In fact, Nevada is the driest state in the US. Between 1895 and 2020, the state averaged only 10.2 inches or 26 centimeters in rain per year, with averages in low elevations down to around 7 inches or about 18 centimeters. New Hampshire. New Hampshire is second only to Alaska in the percent of the state that is forested. Forests cover 82% of the state, or about 4.7 million acres, 19,000 square kilometers. However, a lot of the state's forests are newer than you would think. In the 18th and 19th centuries, New Hampshire was almost completely deforested as settlers from Europe cleared out trees to both create farms and sell wood. By the 1850s, the trees in over 70% of land south of the White Mountains had been cleared. Then, in 1910, the New Hampshire State Forest Nursery was established to attempt to regrow the cleared forests, a very successful effort considering the present state of New Hampshire. But still, you won't find many trees more than 150 years old here. New Jersey. New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the US, with over 1,263 people per square mile. Besides the fact that the state has plenty of urban centers within its borders, like Newark and Jersey City, it also has a lot of suburbs and commuting hubs. These suburbs are home to people who work in the mega-dense center of New York City, not to mention suburbs for Philadelphia as well. The reason New York isn't the most dense state is because outside of New York City and its immediate surrounding areas, the state is relatively sparsely populated. New Mexico. 75% of roads in New Mexico, or about 25,000 miles or 40,000 kilometers of them, are unpaved. The rugged landscapes that make New Mexico such an attractive destination for visitors also make paving little-used or out-of-the-way roads a big pain. That means that a lot of roads, especially outside the big cities, are composed of dirt, sand, clay, and caliche, a sedimentary rock made up of limestone. Not only are these roads found in national forests and other protected areas, New Mexico actually has an entire state route, New Mexico State Road 204, that is made up of 10.8 miles or 17.5 kilometers of gravel road. New York. New York is home to the world's largest train station by number of platforms and area, Grand Central in New York City. Built between 1903 and 1913, the station is already famous for its grand, beautiful architecture. But many people don't know it's also the biggest in the world. The train station currently has 44 platforms and 67 tracks. An estimated 750,000 people commute through it every single day. Thousands more come by just to grab lunch or a drink in famous establishments within the station, like the Campbell Bar. While that's an impressive number, it still doesn't make it the largest train station in the world by volume, though. That would be Shinjuku Station in Tokyo, which handles 3.6 million passengers daily. North Carolina. The Outer Banks of North Carolina are a popular surfing spot, a Netflix show, and the graveyard of the Atlantic all at once. Though these days the area is better known for tourism and improbable storylines, it's also been a horrifically dangerous place for ships historically. From 1526 to today, over 5,000 ships have sunk in this area, many with no survivors. The island of Hatteras specifically has seen over 600 shipwrecks, which is perhaps why the Graveyard of the Atlantic Museum is found here today. A combination of clashing ocean currents off the coast, temperamental weather, and shifting sands on the sandbars off the coast make the area dangerous for sailing, though people do still enjoy boat trips in the area on days with good weather. North Dakota. People don't usually associate North Dakota with an abundance of animals, as the state's landscape and climate can be difficult for life. But it turns out North Dakota has more wildlife refuges than any other state, numbering 63 total. They cover 340,000 acres, or just shy of 1,400 square kilometers of the state, and are home to mammals, birds, and reptiles, including elk, moose, game birds, waterfowl, foxes, and bison. One of the most prominent refuges is the Lostwood National Wildlife Refuge, which has preserved huge areas of mixed grass prairie native to the state. Ohio. The Cuyahoga River in Ohio has caught on fire over a dozen times in the 20th century alone. Thanks to nearby steel mills and other manufacturing plants, the river was intensely polluted, often covered in oil slicks with dead animals floating on the surface. Steelworker Tim Donovan said of the river up until 1969, the river was a scary little thing. There was a general rule that if you fell in, God forbid, you would go immediately to the hospital. When it caught fire one last time on June 22, 1969, it got people around the country so fed up with conditions there that it helped trigger the founding of the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and the Clean Water Act of 1972. Oklahoma. Oklahoma is home to the only U.S. county that borders 4 states. Cimarron County, located in the far west of the Panhandle, borders Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, and Kansas. Not many people enjoy this county's unique status, though, because Cimarron only has a population of around 2,200 people. Oregon. The deepest lake in the U.S. is Crater Lake in Oregon's aptly named Crater Lake National Park. It's almost 2,000 feet or 610 meters deep, meaning you could stack 2 Eiffel Towers on top of each other inside the lake and just barely see the top of one peeking out. Crater Lake was formed only 7,700 years ago. Native Americans in the area were already around to witness the eruption of Mount Mazama that led to its eventual collapse, creating a huge caldera. The caldera filled with water and snowmelt relatively quickly in the wet Pacific Northwest, thereby creating Crater Lake. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was home to the first electrified city in the United States, Scranton, better known to modern audiences as the setting for the TV show The Office. To this day, it's still known as the Electric City. The Dixon Manufacturing Company installed electric lights in 1880, and by 1886, the city had streetcars that ran solely on electric power. Turns out, electric vehicles have been around a lot longer than we think. At the time, Scranton had thriving coal and steel industries, likely one of the reasons it was the first to get electricity. Rhode Island. The oldest restaurant in the United States is located in Newport, Rhode Island. Called the White Horse Tavern, it was first opened in 1673, when the state was still a colony. Back then, as some taverns did at the time, it served multiple purposes, including being used as a meeting place, a city hall, and even a courthouse. The White Horse Tavern is still open and operating today, specializing in farm-to-table cuisine and rum drinks. South Carolina. South Carolina has a monkey colony. On otherwise uninhabited Morgan Island, you'll find rhesus monkeys running all over the place, which is why many locals nicknamed the place Monkey Island. The monkey colony, which has now grown to 3,500 Indian origin monkeys, was originally established in Puerto Rico. However, the monkeys would often escape, and some would do so while carrying and transmitting herpes B infections. Local islanders, who preferred to remain herpes-free, complained, and South Carolina volunteered to have almost 1,400 animals transferred to their uninhabited 4,500-acre marshland island. South Dakota. South Dakota has a longer shoreline than Florida. Yep, it turns out that's due to multiple rivers crisscrossing the state, which end up counting shorelines on both sides of the rivers as opposed to the nearly 8,400 miles of coastline that Florida counts on the ocean, and the massive Lake Oahe. Oahe is a 231-mile or 370-kilometer-long reservoir along the Missouri River, the major river system winding its way through the state. But you can also find the Cheyenne River, Big Sioux, White, and James rivers here. If you want to go for a swim on a sunny day, though, Florida is still probably the better destination. Tennessee. Tennessee has the largest underground lake in the country, fittingly called the Lost Sea. 140 feet or 43 meters underground, within the Craighead Caverns lies a massive body of water. It was first discovered in 1905 when a 13-year-old boy crawled through a small opening in the cave system and discovered a huge room of water. The visible part of the lake is 800 feet by 220 feet wide, but divers and scientists have mapped out at least 13 acres. In fact, people still don't know how big the lake is, or even where it ends. Texas. Texas is the US state with the most ghost towns. To be clear, this doesn't mean haunted places, but rather towns that have been abandoned over time. The Lone Star State has 511 ghost towns, easily outranking the second state on the list, California, with 346 ghost towns. A lot of them, like the relatively well-known town of Terlingua, are mining towns that got abandoned when reserves ran out or the price of precious metals dropped. Utah. The Great Salt Lake didn't get its name by accident. The south arm of the lake is so salty that it's 3 to 5 times saltier than the ocean. The north arm, 10 times saltier than the ocean. So why does Utah have a lake with so much salt? First of all, the Great Salt Lake has no natural drainage, so the salt and minerals deposited in it have nowhere to go. Second, the Great Salt Lake is actually a leftover from a much bigger geographical feature known as Lake Bonneville, which covered almost a quarter of Utah's land in its time, 20,000 square miles, or just south of 52,000 square kilometers. That freshwater lake formed 32,000 years ago, reaching depths of 1,000 feet or 300 meters. Then, 14,500 years ago, the wall of the lake was breached and water came crashing out into the landscape around it. The lake dropped 350 feet 100 meters in a matter of weeks, and severe droughts over the next several years took care of most of the rest of the water, leaving only the Great Salt Lake. Vermont. Texas is widely known as being the sole state to have been an independent republic, but that's actually not true. Vermont was an independent country longer than Texas was. From 1777 to 1791, Vermont decided to take advantage of the Revolutionary War to declare its own independence from everyone, British and US land alike. New York, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire had been fighting over Vermont for a while, insisting they each had land claims to it. Vermont got so sick of the fighting that it just left. However, they still did fight on the American side during the war. The Vermont Constitution is also famous for immediately abolishing slavery and giving all free men the right to vote. Virginia. When you think internet capital of the world, you might think of some advanced high-tech city like Tokyo, New York, or Hong Kong. But the internet capital of the world is actually in Loudoun County, Virginia, specifically in the town of Ashburn. The county has become a huge tech hub, with such powerful digital infrastructure that over 70% of the world's internet traffic is directed through data centers within the county. That's why this area in Northern Virginia is also nicknamed Data Center Alley, and has around 12 million square feet or 1 million square meters of data center space. Washington. Washington is home to the largest ferry operator in the country, Washington State Ferries, or WSF. WSF also happens to be the second largest ferry system in the world, after British Columbia BC ferries. Though most non-locals don't associate the state of Washington with island life, the San Juan Islands just off the coast have 172 named islands, 16 of which are inhabited, which may be why WSF carries around 44,700 passengers per weekday as of 2024. West Virginia. West Virginia is the only state that lies entirely within a mountain range, the Appalachians. While this state creates some pretty stunning landscapes and scenic beauty in the area, it's also part of the reason the state is the second poorest in the nation, with a median income of $51,200. Farms in the state generally aren't very productive because of the steep slopes and difficult terrain. Building the infrastructure needed for large-scale industry is also challenging due to the mountainous landscape. It may not be the only reason for poverty in the state, but it definitely hasn't helped. Wisconsin. Though it may be known for its cheeses, Wisconsin is the world leader in another type of food production: cranberries. The US produces the most cranberries by far internationally, and Wisconsin produces around 2/3 of that harvest. In 2024, that amounted to 4.9 million barrels, or 61% of the country's crop. And last but not least, Wyoming. Wyoming is home to the first national monument, Devil's Tower. In 1906, Theodore Roosevelt, a lover of nature and the great outdoors, designated it a national site. The massive rock formation had already been known as a sacred place for over 20 tribes in the area. The tower is 867 feet or 264 meters tall, with a summit that spans an acre and a half in size, or 6,000 square meters. Did you know these crazy state facts? Tell us your favorite fact about your state below. In the meantime, check out this video right here or another video of ours right over here. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the next episode of Map Pack. Today, we're going to check out 50 more amazing geography facts about all the US states. Let's dive straight in, starting with Alabama. If you look at Alabama on a time zone map, you could see that it operates on Central Time, or UTC-6. But that's actually not the case for the entire state. 4 cities have decided to operate on Eastern Time, following UTC-5 instead. Those cities include Phoenix City, Valley, Lanett, and Smith Station, all bordering or near the Chattahoochee River. Yes, that is its real name, and therefore right by the state of Georgia. As for why these towns decided to follow their neighbor's time zone instead, there are 2 possible reasons. Some people believe it's because these cities are part of the Columbus, Georgia metropolitan area. Others say it's because of the old West Point Pepperell textile industry. It had its headquarters in West Point, Georgia, and the actual textile mills in Alabama, so the entire area went by Georgia time to make doing business easier. Alaska. Alaska is so cold that some of its towns are built entirely on permafrost, and the ground beneath them is collapsing. Northern towns like Nome, Barrow, as well as many smaller native Alaskan villages, and even significant portions of Fairbanks, with a population of almost 32,000 people, all lie on frozen ground, and it's causing a lot of problems. Permafrost is any type of ground which has been permanently frozen for at least 2 years, though some Arctic permafrost has been frozen for hundreds of thousands of years. The problem is, as temperatures rise over time, the ground in Alaska starts thawing, and the houses built on top of it are in trouble. According to Grist magazine, homeowners around Alaska's second-largest city are facing expensive repairs, or even having their properties condemned due to the thawing of the ground they sit on. Arizona. The sunniest place on Earth is in Arizona. The town of Yuma gets 310 sunny days a year. In total, 91% of its daylight hours per year are sunny. It's also quite dry, as the city only gets about 3 inches, 7.6 centimeters of rain in an average year. The good news is winter, early spring, and late fall are generally pleasant, with daytime temperatures in the low to mid 80s Fahrenheit, 29 Celsius, and nighttime temperatures in the 50s, around 13 Celsius. The bad news is residents have to spend the summer blasting the AC to survive the heat. So why is Yuma so sunny and cloudless? Meteorologists think it has to do with both its location in the dry Sonoran Desert, as well as the fact that Yuma is surrounded by mountains that keep incoming weather systems and any possible humidity at bay. Arkansas. Hot Springs National Park is unique because the 47 thermal springs that flow out of the earth in Arkansas's mountains are not volcanic or heated by magma. Instead, they're the result of rainwater seeping deep below the Earth's surface, 8,000 feet, 2,438 meters below. That's 2.5 times as tall as Angel Falls, and then being pushed back up through the Ouachita Mountains, a journey that takes 4,000 years to complete. The hot springs have been prized as a kind of wellness retreat for a long time. They used to be the unofficial capital of Major League Baseball in the offseason, where players would enjoy the healing properties of the springs before the spring season. Hot Springs National Park was so important that even New York and Chicago gangsters like Al Capone declared it a neutral territory, so rival gangs could come down and enjoy the springs in peace. California. You might already know that California is a big agricultural state, making products ranging from avocados to wine. But did you know that 80% of the world's entire almond supply is produced in California as well? California's long, sunny summers and mild, wet winters create ideal almond growing conditions in its Central Valley. However, these trees are also creating a big water problem in a state already known for droughts. For example, 1 pound, 0.4 kilograms of strawberries takes about 22 gallons, 83 liters of water to grow, and a pound of almonds? 400 gallons, about 1,500 liters of water. So if you live in California, you might want to start deciding which you want more, daily showers or almond milk. Colorado. If you've ever gone hiking with someone from Colorado, you've probably realized they're better at it than you. That's because not only is Colorado one of the fittest, most active states in the country, it also has the highest average elevation in the US, clocking in at an average of 6,800 feet, 2,073 meters. So the person walking next to you is used to operating at least 5% less oxygen than you. The state's highest point is at 14,440 feet, 4,400 meters, and the lowest at just over 3,300 feet, 1,000 meters more or less. And we're not just talking about uninhabited mountaintops. Major cities like Telluride sit at over 8,700 feet, 2,650 meters, while the capital of Denver, appropriately nicknamed the Mile High City, is at 1 mile or almost 5,300 feet, 1,600 meters above sea level. Connecticut. The Connecticut River, the body of water that gives the state its name, sometimes decides to go in a different direction, literally. Residents that live near the part of the river that approaches Long Island Sound might notice that the river sometimes reverses course. This happens because the last 60 miles, 96 kilometers of the Connecticut River is tidal. When the tide rushes in from Long Island Sound and the Connecticut River's discharge isn't that fast or heavy, the saltwater tide from the Sound will push upward, making it seem like the river has reversed direction for miles upstream. You can see this phenomenon about twice a day. Delaware. Delaware is known for being a very small state and the first state to ratify the Constitution, but you might be surprised to learn that it's also home to 200 chickens for every one person in the state. And the giant poultry industry that thrives here today started by mistake. In 1923, Cecilia Steele, like most people at the time, was raising chickens for eggs. She ordered 50 chickens every year, except for 1 year when they accidentally sent her 500. Cecilia decided she may as well raise them all and sell them for meat. And when she made a pretty great profit that way, about $5 per pound in today's money, she kept going. Her neighbors, seeing the money flowing in, copied her. Then, with the rationing of red meat in World War II, Delaware's chicken enterprises really exploded, leading to the abnormally high poultry-to-human ratio of the state today. Florida. Though the Midwest has a reputation as one big, flat field, the flattest state in the US, and the one most in danger of being underwater one day, is actually Florida. The average elevation of Florida is only around 100 feet, 30 meters above sea level. Even the highest point, Britton Hill, sits at 345 feet, 105 meters above sea level, just over 1/4 of the height of the Empire State Building. So, why is Florida so flat? Because it was formed as a sedimentary platform, one built up in warm, shallow seas almost entirely made of limestone. Coupled with the fact that the area had no significant earthquake or mountain building activity, this led to an incredibly flat, near sea level state. Georgia. A few states have shifted their capital at least once, but Georgia is in a league of its own. The Peach State has changed its state capital 5 different times. In colonial times, Savannah was the first major settlement established by Europeans, and therefore the first seat of government. Then the capital was moved to Augusta as coastal areas were captured during the Revolutionary War, and rotated back and forth between the two cities for a while. As settlers continued to move westward, Louisville, which was further inland, was designated the new capital. Then settlers pushed into Native American lands and called for the capital to be moved west yet again, to cement white settlers' claim to the land they had just forcefully taken over, this time to Milledgeville. Finally, in 1868, due to its rapid population growth and position as a center for rail travel, Atlanta was designated Georgia's capital. Hawaii. While other states battle with rising sea levels and coastal erosion, Hawaii is the only state in the US that's growing in size. Due to the volcanic nature of the islands, lava flows run down the volcanoes and cool near the coast, increasing the size of the islands. It's even adding a new island altogether. The small island of Loihi, or apologies if I butcher this, Kama'uhuakanaloa, is currently forming off the coast of Hawaii's Big Island, and is expected to emerge from the water in 10,000 to 100,000 years. As for the other Hawaiian land masses, the Big Island grows by about 42 acres, 17 hectares per year, thanks to lava flows from Kilauea volcano. Idaho. Idaho is known for its potatoes, but few people know it also has the nickname of Gem State, thanks to the endless varieties of gemstones found within its borders. Even rare gems like star garnets, otherwise found only in India, can be found throughout Idaho. Other beautiful precious stones discovered in the state include topaz, opals, jasper, tourmaline, and fluorite. So why is Idaho so rich in gemstones? Partly because it sits on the boundary of two major tectonic plates that helped create the Rocky Mountains, the extreme pressure of which creates gems. This is partly because it has a lot of historic volcanic activity that created the right conditions for gem formation, as ash and lava turned into silica-rich water that seeped into rock fissures, creating opals and quartz. While there aren't many large-scale gem mining operations left, recreational and individual collectors still scour the land in Idaho for precious stones. Illinois. Illinois wasn't always as flat as it appears today. Almost 85% of the state was fully covered by glaciers during the Pleistocene epoch, and the state now sits on hundreds of feet of glacial till, sediment picked up and then deposited by the last retreating glaciers. This buried Illinois' original bedrock, including multiple hills and valleys. Though this means the landscape may look more boring than it would have, glacial deposits of soil, clay, silt, sand, and gravel are also what have made Illinois soil ultra-fertile. This rich soil has supported a thriving agricultural industry, making the state a national leader in the production of crops like soybeans and corn. Indiana. Park County, Indiana, is nicknamed the covered bridge capital of the world. People settling Indiana back in the 19th century realized they needed ways to cross the endless creeks and small rivers covering this part of the country. They also needed to get their wagons and carts over these waterways without falling in. Enter the covered bridge design. It was ideal for extending the life and durability of the actual wooden bridge by building a cover to protect it from the many, many elements of the Midwestern climate. Rain, wind, and snow, among others. Today, 31 historic covered bridges remain, and 21 of them are still open for vehicle driving. At the peak of their popularity in the 19th century, there were 14,000 throughout the United States. Today, there are only 700 to 800. Indiana has 92 of the country's remaining covered bridges. Iowa. Surprisingly, for a place as flat as Iowa, the state is also home to the world's shortest, steepest railway. The 4th Street Elevator, otherwise known as the Fenelon Street Elevator, has been serving the downtown Dubuque business district since 1884, though it was originally built for private use. This historic cable car goes up and down 296 feet, 90 meters of railway, taking passengers up 189 feet, 58 meters in elevation from 4th Street to Fenelon Place. The railway is only open from April 1st to November 30th. Kansas. Kansas is home to Stratica, a 275-million-year-old salt mine that is also the only salt mine in the state open to the public. But that's not nearly the most interesting thing about it. Deep in the mines, 650 feet, 198 meters below the ground, the mine is used to preserve movie film. Lee Spence, the CEO of Underground Vaults and Storage, the company that stores the film, says, "We get a lot of the major motion picture studios that store with us because of the preservation of the film that the salt provides, not to mention the consistent temperature and humidity in the mine." Though visitors can't access the film storage vaults, titles held here include Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz, and the Star Wars movies, just to name a few. Kentucky. Kentucky bluegrass is not native to Kentucky. That's right, the famous grass used for lawns and golf courses the world over, and even helped give Kentucky its nickname, the Bluegrass State, was actually introduced to North America by the Spanish Empire. However, some sources credit settlers from Great Britain instead. It's native to parts of Europe, Asia, and the mountains of Algeria and Morocco. Though it's now been around so long in the US that it's considered naturalized, it's also a quite aggressive invasive species, outcompeting local native grasses. So why did this grass that's found pretty much everywhere become so heavily associated with Kentucky? The state offered ideal growing conditions for bluegrass, which became a staple for feeding its famous racehorses. Over time, it also lent its name to bluegrass music, cementing the connection, and now, this foreign species is tied to Kentucky forever. Louisiana. Louisiana loses about a football field of land every hour, or around 16.6 square miles, 50 square kilometers a year. And that's just the land loss counted between 1985 to 2010. Many scientists believe the rate of coastal erosion is now even faster. Between 1932 and 2010, this translated to Louisiana losing almost 1,900 square miles, 4,921 square kilometers of land, or around 1.2 times the size of Rhode Island. So if you're purchasing property in Louisiana, think real long and hard about where you want to buy it. Cities like New Orleans are already below sea level and experiencing repeated flooding. Smaller communities like that of Isle de Jean Charles have uprooted their entire town and moved inwards to escape land loss, as 98% of their land has now disappeared. Maine. Maine is the most forested state in the country, with almost 90% of the state covered by forest. Perhaps the most amazing thing about this fact is that even though Maine's 18 million acres, 7.2 million hectares of unfragmented forests have been logged and harvested for wood for centuries, its trees are still standing for the most part. However, 95% of Maine's forested land belongs to private owners. How does this happen? Great management by the state. Maine has a strong focus on forest conservation. It provides tax incentives, forest practices regulations, and education programs for owners and loggers. This is to help preserve not only one of Maine's best tourist attractions, its beautiful woodland, but also one of the chief reasons the state is 75% carbon neutral, thanks to the trees acting like a carbon sink. Maryland. At its narrowest point, Maryland is only 1 mile, 1.5 kilometers wide. In fact, it's the narrowest non-vertex border-to-border distance of any state in the country. Here, you will find the town of Hancock, with a population of just over 1,550 people, sandwiched between Pennsylvania and Virginia. The border here is so narrow because of the area's geographical features, not to mention border disputes with neighboring states. The Mason-Dixon line set the northern border of Maryland pretty rigidly, and the southern border was set by the flow of the Potomac River and land squabbles with Virginia, leaving only a very tiny strip for the state in the Hancock area. Massachusetts. The oldest subway system in the United States is not in New York, but rather in Boston, Massachusetts. The Tremont Street Subway opened in 1897 and remains part of the MBTA, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. It ran 5 miles, 8 kilometers between the Public Garden and Haymarket Square, and has now been designated a National Historic Landmark, even though it's still in use, hopefully with updated subway cars. In contrast, the first subway station and line in New York City opened in 1904, so Boston beat NYC by a full 7 years. Michigan. Though most sources online say that the Black Hills of South Dakota are the oldest mountain range in the United States, dating back to about 1.8 billion years old, Michigan has a mountain range that's older by about 200 million years. Geologists have dated the formation of the Porcupine Mountains to approximately 2 billion years old. The reason they're usually excluded from consideration as the US's oldest mountain range is because they're so worn down at this point that they're basically unrecognizable as mountains, even for an ancient range. Their highest point sits at just under 2,000 feet 610 meters, just over the highest point of the Hollywood Hills in Los Angeles. It's not exactly what one thinks of when thinking of dramatic peaks. Minnesota. Most people know that the land of 10,000 lakes is a very watery place, even though its nickname is actually a bit wrong, as Minnesota has closer to 11,842 lakes. But did you know this Midwestern state also has so many rivers and streams that put back to back, they could circle the equator almost 3 times? Well, 2 3/4 times, but still, that's a lot. Around 69,000 miles, 111,045 kilometers of streams and rivers to be exact. In other words, you better learn to love fishing if you're in Minnesota. Mississippi. The Mississippi Delta is not found at the delta of the Mississippi River where that river empties into the Gulf. Instead, it's found in northwest Mississippi, This may be old news to locals, but many outsiders are understandably confused when they look for the Mississippi Delta and are directed towards an area nowhere near the Gulf. The Delta gets its name because it's where the Yazoo River meets the Mississippi River, creating a fertile area that is frequently flooded by both rivers' waters. Though Delta technically means the triangle where rivers meet the sea, over time people started using it to refer to any lowland area with lots of river channels spanning outwards. And thus, the Mississippi Delta region got its somewhat geographically inaccurate name. Missouri. Missouri is home to the tallest monument and the smallest national park in the United States, and they're the same place. Most people have seen St. Louis' famous arch in photos, but did you know that the Gateway Arch is by far the tallest monument in the United States? At 630 feet 192 meters tall, the arch stands over twice as tall as the Statue of Liberty. At the same time, Gateway Arch National Park, the conserved area surrounding the arch, also happens to be the smallest national park, measuring only 192 acres 77 hectares in size, or just over the area of Disneyland. In comparison, famous parks like Yosemite covers over 761,000 acres, nearly 308,000 hectares, and are still far from the country's largest national parks. That honor goes to Wrangell St. Elias in Alaska, which covers over 13.2 million acres, 5.3 million hectares. Montana. Montana has stunning landscapes, beautiful scenery, and some of the most insane weather in the country. The state is home to the biggest temperature change ever recorded. From January 14th to January 15th, 1972 in Loma, the temperature rose from negative 54 degrees Fahrenheit, 47 below Celsius, to 49 degrees Fahrenheit, 9.4 degrees Celsius, an overnight difference of 103 degrees. While nothing quite compares to the extreme weather event of 1972, Montana frequently experiences dramatic temperature swings. Its inland location means there's no nearby ocean to moderate the climate, and the state is exposed to a mix of Arctic, Pacific, and Gulf air masses, all of which can cause rapid and unpredictable changes in temperature. However, the biggest temperature increases are usually caused by Chinook winds, warm, dry winds that flow down the eastern slopes of the Rockies and can cause the temperature to rise by tens of degrees within a matter of hours. Nebraska. The Ogallala Aquifer lies under almost the entire state of Nebraska. With the exception of the state's southeastern point, the rest of its land is over one of the largest aquifers in the world. Ogallala expands across 8 states, from South Dakota to Texas. But despite what some people think, an aquifer isn't some kind of underground lake. Instead, it's an area of saturated sediment that has water stored within it, water that can then be drawn out to be used above ground. One of the reasons the U.S.'s Great Plains states are able to support huge, thriving farms in the first place. Nevada. Nevada is the driest state in the U.S., with 10.3 inches, 26 centimeters of precipitation per year, narrowly beating out Arizona, which gets a couple more inches of rain. Southern Nevada sees even less rain than that, with an average of 7.1 inches, 18 centimeters per year, perhaps explaining why this part of the state is mostly desert. In fact, 85% of the state is either considered desert or arid land. New Hampshire. According to Guinness World Records, the fastest surface wind ever recorded anywhere in the world was a 231 mile an hour, 372 kilometer an hour wind on New Hampshire's Mount Washington, twice as fast as a skydiver plummeting down to Earth belly first. Though this wind speed was recorded on April 12, 1934, conditions haven't changed much over the years. Any hiker who has been up the mountain lately will tell you that the incredibly strong winds on Mount Washington are one of the most challenging aspects of the hike. The mountain gets so windy because of a combination of its elevation, almost 6,300 feet, 1,900 meters, the fact that major storm tracks usually clash into each other here, and a funnel effect from the nearby White Mountains. That's why, even though Mount Washington is far from the tallest peak, it's known as the most dangerous small mountain in the world. New Jersey. New Jersey is a peninsula. No, seriously. While most people think of states like Florida and Alaska or Michigan when thinking of peninsula states, or in the case of Michigan, 2 peninsula states, New Jersey usually gets overlooked. And why wouldn't it? At first glance, it looks like its west side is just sitting there, cozying up to Pennsylvania. But on closer inspection, you'll see a river flowing between the two states, the Delaware River. So that means New Jersey has the Atlantic Ocean on the east side and most of its south side, and the Delaware River and Delaware Bay bordering the rest, meaning only its north side is fully connected to the rest of the US mainland. New Mexico. White Sands National Park has some of the coolest dunes in the country, and we mean that literally. The park is actually the world's largest gypsum dune field, giving it its white, snowy appearance that has made the area famous on Instagram. In fact, the gypsum is so white that it doesn't absorb any heat at all, meaning even when temperatures in New Mexico are scorching at above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius, the dunes are completely cool to the touch. New York. Your compass will stop working in the Adirondack Mountains. If you want to be old school when trekking through the mighty Adirondacks, navigating with a compass pointing north, you might be disappointed and end up walking in circles. The Adirondacks have huge deposits of iron ore, which interfere with magnetic fields as well as magnetite, the most magnetic of all naturally occurring minerals on the planet, meaning that your compass will start turning every which way when you wander around the mountains. Better to get a satellite GPS, or a friend who knows the area well. North Carolina. North Carolina is home to the oldest river in North America, the oddly named New River. This river flows for 340 miles, 547 kilometers from the Blue Ridge Mountains in the state all the way northwest into Virginia and West Virginia. It's part of the Appalachian Mountain Basin, one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. Many scientists believe that the New River is even older than the mountains around it, having been created between 260 million and 325 million years ago, and simply rising up with the mountains as they formed. While no one is 100% sure why in the world it's called the New River now, one story says that the explorers who found it in 1671, not having seen it before, simply noted down that it was new on their map. Everyone who saw it was basically too lazy to think of something else, so the name stuck. North Dakota. You can walk around Canada at North Dakota's International Peace Garden. The 2,300-acre, 931-hectare park and gardens sits right on the 49th parallel, in this case, the border between Manitoba Province and North Dakota. Both Canadians and Americans can enter on either side and walk around the area, even meeting up with friends from across the border. On the North Dakota side, you'll encounter a U.S. Customs and Border Protection station that will check your papers. The garden is supposed to represent the friendly relationship between the U.S. and Canada. Ohio. People go fossil picking at Cedar Creek State Park in Ohio, one of the easiest places to find fossils in the country, as many of them are just fully exposed and lying around. That's because the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers constructed a dam from 1971 to 1977 that ended up exposing a lot of the area's limestone, which contains a lot of fossils. That being said, you can't just pick up any fossil. You have to have a permit, and there are specific areas designated for fossil collecting. You also can't keep anything larger than the size of your hand. Oklahoma. Oklahoma has the distinction of being the tornado capital of the world, an honor no one else really wants. Though the famous Tornado Alley extends over northern Texas, Kansas, Colorado, Nebraska, and South Dakota, Oklahoma gets by far the most tornado activity per year. The state gets an average of 68 tornadoes annually, though in 2024 it experienced 91 tornadoes, mostly between the months of March to May. Though other states like Texas got more tornadoes that year, Oklahoma is known as the tornado capital because it lies at the heart of Tornado Alley, and the strongest tornadoes tend to hit here. Oregon. Though it's located in the famously rainy and heavily forested Pacific Northwest, Oregon actually has over 24,000 square miles, 62,000 square kilometers of desert, known as the Central Oregon High Desert. Beginning at the eastern base of the Cascades and stretching east and south, the area is around 4,000 feet, 1,200 meters in elevation. The Cascades are actually the reason the Oregon Desert is so dry compared to the rest of the state. The mountains create a rain shadow, keeping most of the rain that comes in from the Pacific coast over the mountains and preventing it from moving east past their high peaks. Though the landscape here might not have sand dunes or other typical desert features, it does qualify due to precipitation, and it's made up mostly of shrubland. Pennsylvania. The ground Pennsylvania sits on resembles Swiss cheese more than solid rock. This is due both to the state's history of mining, which opened up tunnels under several parts of the state, and the natural limestone that sits underneath other parts, which is prone to sinkholes. Sinkholes have swallowed up rows of front yards, entire houses, even people. Some missing persons cases, like that of Elizabeth Pollard, have been solved after their bodies were found dozens of feet underground in newly opened sinkholes. Rhode Island. Not only is Rhode Island the tiniest state in the country, but 33% of it is water. That makes it the third wateriest state in the Union, behind Michigan and Hawaii. However, Rhode Island's size, combined with the large portions of the state covered by water and its long, irregular coastline, has limited the kind of growth seen in other New England states. Its capital, Providence, has a population of 190,000 people. And establishing big urban or industrial zones, or even great infrastructure like rail lines and highways, is almost impossible because of the state's carved-up geography. So Rhode Island seems destined to remain a more peaceful state than most, something its many yacht owners probably prefer. South Carolina. There's a ghost town underneath the waters of Lake Jocassee in South Carolina. The lake was created in 1973 when the Jocassee Dam was built to generate hydroelectric power in the area. Before the flooding, many artifacts were dug up from the historic Cherokee Nation's Jocassee town to be saved from the town's submersion. Today, divers can explore the remains of the town, including Mount Carmel Cemetery, featured in the movie Deliverance before it found itself underwater, and the historic Atakula Lodge, a well-known old hotel in the area, which is now 300 feet 91 meters underwater. South Dakota. Gold mines are usually associated with the Wild West, but the largest and deepest gold mine ever operated in the U.S. was the Homestake Gold Mine in Lead, South Dakota. From 1876 to 2002, 40 million ounces, 1.1 billion grams of gold were extracted from the mine. Today, visitors can check out the history of the mine at the Visitor Center. There's still work going on in the mine, but of a very different kind. Scientists work tirelessly on experiments with neutrinos and dark matter here at the Sanford Underground Research Facility, which is the deepest scientific research facility in the country. Tennessee. Though not as huge as the national parks of the western U.S., Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited park in the United States. Not only does it get the most visitors, but the difference in tourism with the rest of the country's national parks isn't even close. For example, in 2024, Great Smoky Mountains National Park received over 12 million visits. The second most visited park, Zion National Park, received only 4.9 million visits, just over one-third of the visitors who saw the Great Smoky Mountains. Texas. You probably knew Texas was big, but did you know it's larger than any country in Europe? We don't just mean it's larger than some country. There's not a single European country that outdoes Texas for size. Granted, that's assuming we're counting Russia as part of Asia, as the majority of its landmass lies there. Ukraine is the largest country found entirely within Europe and has an area of just over 233,000 square miles, 603,000 square kilometers. Texas, on the other hand, has an area of almost 269,000 square miles, almost 700,000 square kilometers, making it around 36,000 square miles, 93,000 square kilometers larger. That means the difference between Texas and Ukraine is just over the size of the entire island of Ireland. Utah. If you can't save up enough money to get on a future flight to Mars, you can get an idea of what the red planet would look like in the canyonlands around Hanksville, Utah. Several scientists have used the area to test out equipment and cameras for Mars missions. The landscape and its soil are so similar to what you would find on the red planet that the area makes for a good practice field. Marjorie Chan, a professor of geology at the University of Utah, took the comparison one step further. She doesn't just think Mars Mars and southern Utah look similar, but that they actually formed in very similar ways. As she says, "We think that many of the same processes and some of the same environments that we can see exposed in southern Utah are probably similar to some of the environments on Mars." Vermont. Though you may expect to find big marble quarries in the Mediterranean or other areas famous for their monuments, the largest underground marble quarry in the world is actually in Danby, Vermont. Called the Danby Quarry, of course, it has been operating since 1903, with thousands of workers extracting marble that formed in the area hundreds of millions of years ago. Today, the famous Danby marble has been used in several notable buildings, including the New York Public Library, the UN Building, the Supreme Court, and the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. Virginia. The eastern shore of Virginia is separated from the rest of the state by the Chesapeake Bay. To get to the counties of Accomack and Northampton, which sit right on the Atlantic Ocean, you have to cross the 17.6-mile, 28-kilometer-long Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. Before 1964, you had to take a ferry. This 70-mile-long, 113-kilometer section of the state is part of the Delmarva Peninsula and connected to Maryland. So why is it part of Virginia? Because when the British carved out Maryland from the, at the time, colony of Virginia, they insisted on keeping just the tip of the peninsula in Virginia. Washington. Washington has an archipelago known as the San Juan Islands. The weird part is, how many islands you find there depends on the tide. The official consensus says that there are 176 islands and reefs in the San Juan Island chain, with only a few dozen of them inhabited, and public ferries taking people to only 4: San Juan, Orcas, Lopez, and Shaw. However, at low tide, as many as 743 islands and reefs surface in the Puget Sound between Washington and Vancouver Island. That's because the tidal range around the islands is relatively large, with an average difference of 10 feet, 3 meters between high tide and low tide, and many parts of the archipelago are just below sea level. West Virginia. Although it's a landlocked state, West Virginia has at least 32 islands in the Ohio River alone. In fact, a lot of these islands have served as a refuge for the wildlife on them, as they remain relatively protected from hunting and anyone encroaching on their environment there. Some islands are inhabited and developed. Wheeling Island has a whole casino on it. Others just have a house or two. Either way, swimming out to river islands is a fun pastime for many West Virginians. Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, you can see rock formations that are older than life on Earth. And we don't just mean human life. We mean any life at all, aside from bacteria. The stones at Devil's Lake State Park are made of Baraboo quartzite and are around 1.5 billion years old, making them one of the oldest rock formations on the continent. Since the first land plants appeared on Earth during the Cambrian period about 500 million years ago, this makes parts of the Baraboo Range about 3 times older than them. And last but not least, Wyoming. Maybe it's a good thing that not too many people live in Wyoming, as the northwestern part of the state sits on top of a supervolcano. The Yellowstone Caldera, the thing that fuels a lot of the tourist attractions in Yellowstone National Park, like the Old Faithful Geyser and hot springs found throughout the area, is 30 by 45 miles, 50 by 70 kilometers large. It has erupted at least 3 times in the last couple of million years. One of the eruptions was so devastating that it covered half the North American continent in ash. The good news? The volcano is now dormant. The bad news? It's not extinct, meaning it's still active, so there's a possibility of a future eruption. But not to worry. Scientists are monitoring Yellowstone's activity and say there's nothing to be afraid of, for now. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack.